I guess it's on your phone. That's a dumb question. You
I don't have the I don't have the
don't
box,
have the
but I
knowledge
have the
gun.
air horn.
You don't have the knowledge. That's awesome, man.
A
Yeah.
bunch of dumb stuff from when I was in high school, but
Oh man.
no mystery boxes.
No mystery boxes this time around, dude. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. People file in. We'll give it like kind of like 3 minutes, dude, and
Cool.
we can sort of get started on the presentation, man. You know, it's so funny. We were just talking. Garth and I were just talking like earlier in the practice session, and then I was telling them that people would like message me and go, "I don't know where this guy gets his energy, but I want it. But I want it." And I was like, "Yo, me too." I don't, yeah, man. I thought I was like energetic, but
Well, you are. You have a good like welcoming energy.
thanks, man. Yeah, yeah. Where does that energy come from? Like, give us the secrets, because there's like a there's secrets to animation and like story
Box.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What do you do to what do you do to keep the energy up? And that kind of stuff.
Um, I mean, I think it really, it really just
That's a
there's
weird
a couple
question.
things.
I
It
know.
comes from within. It also comes from drinking coffee at like 6:30 p.m. on a Sunday. And then I think I mean, the real thing I think is just that I do. It always comes from fear, and just sort of like I'm so like worried that people aren't going to be entertained or aren't going to learn anything or whatever. That I'm like I'm going to throw everything I can at this. So I always try to keep the like beast of fear behind me, running from it. So it's just me being afraid.
Did you kind of did you kind of hone that? I mean, I know it's your personality, but like being a teacher as well. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I think that was sort of like I just noticed sort of when I was teaching that when I really like kind of came in with a lot of energy, and I also had a couple teachers that were like that who just like came in hot
right.
and they were like, "I'm gonna teach everything I know," and I was always like, as a kid, I was like, oh, "This is so fun," you know. Like it always was like, I always try to like do to other people things that either I've liked or what I wanted to get, you know. So it's like if as when I was sort of like a when I was a student, I always was like really excited when the teachers were one
Excited.
optimistic and
Yeah,
two excited.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Because
I was
sometimes
just
there were
gonna
some
say
teachers
that.
that were like burned by the industry, and everyone was like,
Yeah,
"Ooh, boy."
which could happen. Which could happen. I mean,
Yeah,
that's something.
totally. No,
Yeah,
but it's like they would bring that negativity to the class, and everyone would be like bummed.
yeah. Or just like they just yeah. I think I know what you mean. And I was just gonna ask that too because we remember what it's like to be a student, right? And then just
Yeah,
those we had classes that had both, right?
yeah,
You had classes where the teacher is super passionate, and then and classes where it wasn't that wasn't the case, right? But
yeah,
like I think that's where kind of comes from you too. You're just like super passionate about the medium, the
yeah.
storytelling, and everything else. So it's something
And I
you don't
think
have
it's
to
also
fake it.
good too to have teachers that are sort of a little bit got a little bit burned too, because then it sort of gives you like some lane. It's like, well, this could happen or this could happen. Like
Yeah.
it's sort of I'm actually learning. I'm sort of teaching an advanced story class. I used to teach story one. That's where all these lessons are from. And it's funny
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, oh, you need kind of a different energy in advanced story because I'm like just like cheerleader, like everything's great, But like sometimes people need bad cop, and I'm like, ooh, I'm not a very good bad cop. Like I'm like
So,
nice cop and
oh,
nicer cop. Like, do you want some flowers?
that'd be interesting to talk about a little bit later. But thank you everyone for coming. We can kind of get into it. Man, these have been a lot of fun. Oh, Mike, dude, thank you so much again for doing this stuff,
Dude, no problem.
doing
It's a
these
treat.
classes, man. It's so meaningful, really, honestly. I was even watching the recording that we had when I was working all throughout the week of your
Oh,
class
cool.
too, and I was like, oh, this is man, so much fun. And I was like, I should stop laughing so much in the background. It kind of distracts
No,
me.
that's okay.
Yeah, man. But I didn't want to make you feel alone, dude. Like talking
No,
into a
I'm into
void.
it. I'm into it.
So, but hey, everybody, thank you for coming. I'll do a quick intro on Mike, and we can get going on his week 3 story course. And for anyone who missed the first two, I'll kind of really go through it really quickly. Mike was a writer and creative director on the amazing Gravity Falls. I was just watching that today.
Oh, cool.
I was watching the Northwest Party episode.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one.
So funny. But Mike has also worked at Pixar Animation Studios, Jib Jab Animation Studios, and he will be making his directorial debut for Sony Pictures Animation's upcoming film, Connected, which is, I think it's about a pug, right? That's what the
Yeah,
film is
it's about a funny pug. Hey, I'll take it. If that gets people in the theaters, let's do it.
Mike also studied character animation at CalArts, where he now teaches, like we talked about, and we're very lucky to have him put together this series of courses on story. Thank you, Mike. Sony Animation, in conjunction with Women in Animation, these have been so fun, and we're lucky to have you, man. So I'll jump off. Take it away. If you have any tech stuff, I'll be here. Cool. But let's do it, man. Let's do it, everybody.
Thanks, dude. Hey! Yeah. All right, let me share screen. Count how many air horn blasts there are, and there will be a prize at the end. I'm going to do a specific amount. It's going to be between 500 and 10,000. And you'll have to guess what it is. Okay, so far we're up to 43. Now, my parents' phone is ringing. Okay, cool. So, Jesus Christ. Hold on, let me take this phone off. Okay. Hey, oh, hello. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm screen sharing. Great. All right, so this is Story with Mike Rianda, week 3. Okay, cool. And so last week in story class, actually 2 weeks ago, we learned. I dedicated my life to drawing it to 12 hours a day. I believed I could do it. It was terrifying. 8 years later, I filled up these sketchbooks. Boom, boom, boom. I did get better. Still not that much better. I'm actually at my parents' house, and I found all these bad drawings that I did from when I was trying to get into CalArts. So you too can be in animation, friends. You don't have to be that good, is the point. It helps to be as good as you can, but I still feel inadequate. Okay, cool. You have to sort of get all the way up to here to sort of and I'm gonna move me over here. Sorry. Not in my normal space. It's kind of freaking me out. But it still wasn't enough. I was rejected from every job I applied to. I believed I could do it. I worked super hard, but there was a secret to success in animation. And there's a box. I don't have the box, but it's being well taken care of. My wife is watching it. She's got a pistol and a shotgun, and she shot several people who tried to open it because it wasn't time yet. But what's in the box? What's in the box? You'll find out next week. Tune in next week, kids. One of the cool things about sort of that I've been finding out about this class is that people are actually doing the assignments that I'm giving out, which is really exciting. So I just wanted to highlight a few. If you send them to me on Twitter, you're more likely to get me to talk about them. Fun fact. So this is Sophia Zatuni. I won't show it because it's like a minute long, but it is a full, complete story. Structure Shark achieved level 12 story, hit points up, SP up. Go check it out on Twitter. It's really good. She took a simple story of these two monkeys, and sort of like one was making these little statues out of grass, and the other one was like really excited about the sock. One of the monkeys ripped up the other one's sock, and then he felt bad, and then he made a sock out of grass, and it was like a full, complete story. It sort of showed a sort of monkey being a jerk, and then sort of feeling bad for his little monkey buddy. A+. This is a cool like little one called Willow and the Wisp, or Willow and Wisp. It's like this nice like kind of balance of like realistic and sort of fantastic stuff. I thought it was really cool how this like her little sidekick fits in her little backpack there. And she wrote out this whole story, and I think that's totally valid too, because I think this week's lesson is going to be like about just purely executing your ideas. And we're going to have an assignment where you sort of like execute like a script from somebody else's, and it's a really good lesson to learn to just sort of like take somebody else's work, so you don't have the like ego involved in it, and you're like, oh, it's my precious creation, and you just have to figure out simply how to execute something well. So sort of after this week's lesson, then you could go back and do this one, and then you'll be in great shape to board it, because you'll have a giant story brain, and you'll like just be walking around like MODOK from from Marvel Comics. Your head will be gigantic. And this, just quickly sort of talk about this story. It's sort of like about this 22-year-old this sort of 22-year-old girl, or oh no, she's a ghost, and she sort of like goes to wants to scare people, and she scares a bunch of people, and so sort of she realizes like that might not be as fulfilling as she thought it was, so she just sort of travels the world with her companion. That is a complete story. The one thing I would say about this story is that like I think all of these stories could benefit from more specifics. Like for instance, in this story, like this character design of Willow is good, but like what could you sort of pick about her visually to make her more specific? Like what kind of shirt does she wear? Does she wear like a weird stripy French shirt because she sort of is obsessed with France? Or, does she have earrings with sort of her mom's name on them because her mom died, or whatever. Like whatever you can do to sort of like add character to her. And sort of the same for the story. It's like I like that it's in this like very specific, Winchester Street Victorian house. That's great. But like, what it sort of talks about, like, oh, they're scaring people in a haunted house. What are the things they're doing to scare people? And what does the house look like? What what does that look like? Sort of, and that sort of stuff, And but it is a full, complete story. Structure Shark achieved. I was really pumped to read these because you guys are sort of following the sort of like rule of sort of like having a character have a realization and stuff. And I thought they were really strong. And then this is Chase Mack from last time. Chase, what's up? Double. Did 2 assignments. He did this cute assignment about this girl. I can pitch this one out because we have the boards. They're in front of the house. This girl's surrounding, sort of going in a circle in front of this like bored girl who doesn't have a bike. And then it's like, it's been 10 minutes. When is it my turn? And then the girl stops. It's like, I told you I had to get my use out of it before I get rid of it. What? You didn't tell me that. Well, I've had this bike forever, and now I can sell it for a new one. But what about you teaching me to ride without training wheels? And she's like, well, I don't think you're ready for this yet. Maybe in the future you'll get one as awesome as this one. Then she rides away. And then this is nice. She sees her little sister in the rear view, all small and sad. And then she sort of comes back and says, hey, maybe one quick lesson. Quick little going over this one. One, I think this one could be, I think this one is really strong. I think it tells a complete story. Structure Shark achieved. Hit points going up. Your story points are going up. Your visual dynamics points are going up. Your character, your CAP, your CAP points are going up. Character arc points. A couple things here. One is that there is like a little bit of a screen direction thing here, where typically the little sister with pigtails is on the left side of the screen, and when she looks back, she's on the right side of the screen. So that's like a little bit confusing. I think if you just flop these boards, and then she was on the left side of the screen again, and the little sister was on the right, I think that would make it a little bit clearer. The other thing I think this could use is some more specifics. Like, for example, this girl's just sitting there bored. Maybe she's bored. I try to think of things when I was a kid, like I would always drink these little Capri Sun pouches. Maybe she's drinking like little Capri Sun, Mountain Blast or whatever, and maybe this girl, she's got like a Huffy bike. When I was a kid, Huffy was like the super cool, but like or maybe Huffy was the lame one, I don't remember. But like whatever, what is the specific type of bike that she's selling this bike for? Is it like a cool mountain bike with like 12 speeds? Like, what can you remember about childhood to infuse into this to make it feel more like childhood, you know? Because right now it's really nice, it's really well boarded, it's really clear, but it's kind of general. I think whatever you can do to make it more specific will make it even better. Okay, cool. So first, before we do anything, I want you guys to draw. So grab a pen, grab a piece of Post-it note, ideally, or just a sheet of paper. Doesn't really matter. And I want you guys to start off by doing a drawing of a mother reading to a baby. Do a drawing of a mother reading to a baby. Okay, I'm gonna set time on the story clock at 7:17. My screen 7:17. When it hits 7:20, you have to be done. So it doesn't have to be a brilliant drawing or anything, but just do something. I'll do something too. I'll embarrass myself by doing some boards myself. I'll play a song while we wait.
I'm doing this, Mike.
Great.
You gotta doing it.
Couple minutes. Okay, we'll give it about 10 to 15, give it 30 more seconds. Finish the drawing. It's the final countdown. Okay, and there we go. Okay, I'm going to show my drawing as an example of a terrible drawing. So I did, this is like a mother reading to a child. For some reason, the kid is in the is in a crib, but he's like listening attentively. It's not the best drawing in the world, but there you go. That's what we're starting off with. I want everyone to save their drawing in the beginning. We're going to do one in the beginning. We're going to do one in the end. Beginning? Yeah. Okay, cool. So hopefully you did it. If you didn't do it, you're disqualified. You're kicked off the Zoom. Get him out of there. Okay. Bobby's currently hunting through, just ejecting people from the Zoom left and right. Okay. So I wanted, this whole lecture is about visual dynamics. That's what I want to talk about, which is basically visual dynamics is like how you're telling the story visually. It's like it's basically like, it's like, so like our last class, that's sort of like, say you put your script together and you have your story from A to B. Now is the part where like direction and cinematography and lighting come in, which is like, how can you tell your story the most effectively to get the point across? So we started in the beginning, we started at 0 with a general lack of clarity. We were lost in the fucking woods. We didn't know what was going on. We were maniacs. And then you just have this haze of confusion covering up the screen. We were lost. We were in the woods. We were dead. And now, then hopefully we've cleared up the clarity issues, resulting in understanding. People are watching their film. They're like, I get it. Then using story structure like you guys just did to brilliant effect. Amazing job. You can do this. You can pull people into your story. They want to find out what happens next. But what's better than that even? This. Being sucked so far into the screen, you're having an immersive experience. Like if a story is engrossing enough, the audience will just be in it and they'll almost forget they're watching something. I think like everyone has had, even though this is a cartoony version, everyone has had an experience like this, right? Where you watching a movie and it's like totally transportive. And you know that feeling when like the movie ends and you walk out of the theater and you're like, it's daylight? What? I was just having a transportative experience, where I was on Pandora or whatever, But so if a story is engrossing enough, it will feel like an experience. It won't feel like a movie. It'll feel like the person's there. And that's where we want to get to. These are rare and amazing moments. When they happen, mwah, they're the best. And the good news that in your quest to make people like feel your stories and be a part of your stories, you have an amazing tool at your disposal, which is animation. It gives you complete control, complete visual control. Sometimes people are like, hey, would you ever like to do animation or a live action? I'm like, no, that's insane. Because you don't have full control over everything. In animation, you get to figure out what the backgrounds look like, and you could use all that to your advantage. This stuff is incredibly fun and exciting to dig into. This is like when I was learning how to do storyboards or trying to learn how to do storyboards, this is like my favorite part was like watching movies, breaking them down, trying to figure out what they were doing and trying to do that stuff myself. And it gets to sort of like what is special and magic about animation. I heard this like quote about animation that I thought that really inspired me and sort of got to one of the things I love about animation, which is the beauty of animation is you're taking the real world, you're taking life and you're filtering it through your identity and your experiences, and then using an imperfect, inherently flawed technique, which is like either drawing with your pen or rendering with a computer and trying to recreate your feelings and identity and experience of the world, basically. Like when someone draws something, it's like in a Miyazaki movie or something, every leaf is like, that's how this artist saw that leaf that day. It's like when I draw a flower, I tend to draw them like kind of, because when I see flowers in the world, I always struck by how much they don't look like these beautiful cartoon flowers that I have in my head. I'm like, oh, this rose is a little yellow and it's this, it's kind of crinkling at this edge. So that's how I would draw a rose. You know what I mean? And it's like everyone has their own perspective on everything in the world. So it's like, it's so exciting to see that represented. And sort of in doing so, you create your perspective of it and you filter the whole world through your own eyes. And if you look at like independent filmmakers like Bill Plimpton or Johnny Phillips, like they're sort of taking the world and they're sort of filtering it all through their perspective and they're presenting it in a whole new way. And the world feels different and you see the world through their eyes for a few seconds. And you're not drawing what's real, you're drawing what you feel. That's really exciting too. When it comes to shape, size, color, when you're a little kid and you feel like an adult's huge, like, and people draw that. The Hubleys have all these drawings or have all these short films of their kids and they draw adults like these giant monsters because when you're a kid, that's what it feels like. And you can represent that in a way that you can in live action. Because what you're representing isn't reality, it's the way you see reality, which is really cool. So when you're watching a Miyazaki movie and he's talking about childhood, he's like, what did that feel like? You're holding a corn and you're sad about your mom, she might be sick. This is an artist, Lindsay Oliveira. She was a production designer for our movie. But the thing I loved about her is she drew everything like this nap. most people wouldn't draw the napkin with the gunk on it, and actually insert that into the drawing. But Lindsay always does, because she's interested in the sort of imperfect parts of reality. And that's why she was such a great production designer in our movie, because our movie is about imperfect people. And it's like, she would sort of draw these moments with her grandma really lovingly. And then this is a short by Pat McHale, who did Over the Garden Wall. And this short, by the way, is beautiful. Look it up. It's called Body. This awesome movie by Felix Cosgrove, like, it sort of shows the world through his perspective. This is one of the Hubley movies that I'm talking about. This is FLCL. Like, all of these shows, they're all animation, but they're all so wildly different. And you can do that too. That's the exciting part. Like, you can bring your weird experiences and make that a part of culture. Come on. Anyway, so no matter what your voice is, you have a series of tools that can help you engage the audience, whether it's your own idea or you're boarding someone else's script. Because if you're taking this class because you want to be a storyteller, that's one thing. If you're taking this class because you want to become a professional storyboard artist, which is a hard job, but it's really fun and rewarding, oftentimes you're going to be boarding other people's stories, and you're going to be trying to figure out how to plus them and say, like, okay, I can't change the words on the page, but I can sell it as well as I can. I can draw it really dynamically. I can really make this story sing, And the most important way is to filter your ideas is this. This applies to anything you do. Whenever you're boarding anything, the first thing that comes into your mind, it shouldn't be clarity, which clarity is important. Clarity is maybe the number one thing, but this is maybe number two. The most important way to filter your ideas is this. You have to know the point of your story or scene. That seems really elementary, but if you don't know the point of your story or scene, all your boards will be wrong, even if you could draw like an angel. And I point this out because this is something that happens all the time in animation. This is something that I do accidentally. This is something that people on our crew have done sort of accidentally. It's like the people on the board artists on our crew are like the best team I've ever seen in my life. But even sometimes you're like, oh, I thought the point was the action, but really the point is, like that we had a scene in the movie where it's an action scene, but it's really about this father and daughter bonding. And the person who boarded it the first time around was really excited about all the action, and that was really fun, and all the action was great, but it ruined the scene because the scene was really about the father and the daughter bonding. And if you aren't emphasizing that visually with the camera and with the acting and with the lighting, the scene won't work. So it's like for My Neighbor Totoro, it's like engaging in the wonders and fears of childhood. Grave of the Fireflies is the grim reality of war. I only have a few examples. I use them over and over again. Coco is the importance of honoring family. Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken, which is anime that like is amazing. And if you're into animation, it's like even better. It's all about the joy of creativity, and it's like the most fun show to watch in the world. It's so sweet. And then this genius, you know what I'm saying? This goddamn pillar of animation. No, this is from our movie. But it's sort of like, I use this as an example just because we did it, and I know the thought process behind it is because like we sort of like the point of our movie was about how imperfect people are and how imperfect families are. So Lindsay, the same girl that did those drawings, did these designs and all these little drawings on the side, and along with this girl, Lily Nishida, whatever. And they sort of like, okay, how can we emphasize about people what's imperfect and what's like why, let's give them rumply clothes. Let's make sure they have stains on their jacket. Like let's include the wet wipes that you normally wouldn't put in a shot like this. And then also, the movie's from Katie's perspective, this creative girl. So she's like drawing on the screen recklessly, So we try to sort of like use all the tools in our animation toolkit to sort of point towards the theme of the movie. And the theme of the movie in this point is like the beauty and imperfections of people and the imperfection, the beauty in that imperfection. So whether it's your story or someone else's, the important thing to know is how to tell a story visually. So you could have all these, like if you read a script and you're like, or even your own story, you'll have all these ideas in your mind. Like, do I do this cool dynamic shot? Should I do a split screen? Should I do a close-up like Magnolia? What's the character design look like? Should I do a fart joke? Like, should I do that Zolly, like that zoom dolly thing like Hitchcock does? You just put them through this filter that says, what is the story point? And that will shoot out usable ideas. So it's like, okay, this doesn't work for the story at all. Like, you wouldn't do this like cool zoom shot here because it's a romantic, like maybe it's a romantic scene and you want to be close to the characters and you don't want to be doing fancy camera work. Or maybe it's sort of like, maybe it's an action shot and a close-up isn't what you want. Maybe it's because it's an action scene. You want to stay wide so you could see all the cool stuff the characters are doing, or it's a musical and you want to see all the cool dancing that the people are doing. So you always have to filter through, like, what is the story point here? If the story point is, look at how good of a dancer this person is, you shouldn't do a bunch of close-ups. You should do a wide shot so you could see them dancing and see how good they are. You know what I mean? All right. So then, yeah, usable ideas come out of that. It seems basic, but like I said, sometimes people miss it. And it's like, I miss it myself sometimes too. It's an easy thing to miss, but it's like when you sit down to storyboard something, that should be the first thing in your head. Like, what is the story point here and how can I emphasize it? So for instance, this is Stanley Kubrick, my man, the OG. He sort of, the reason I'm sort of bringing him up is he has a script for this like great unfinished film. And it's about Napoleon. So I was like, okay, so Stanley Kubrick's pretty good. I bet this movie would have been pretty good. So if you guys are board artists, what would you do with this opening? So this is something that you could work on for your assignment if you want, or you could pick something else. But I wanted to talk about this opening. So it's like, here's just a bit of a script. And then we could talk about how we might board it, right? Fade in, interior bedroom, Corsica, night. A well-worn teddy bear is cradled in the arms of Napoleon, age 4, who dreamily sucks his thumb, listening to a bedtime story told by his young mother, Letizia. Bedtime story, mother reading. Are you seeing the connections? His 5-year-old brother, Joseph, is already asleep beside him. Narrator. Napoleon was born at Ajaccio. We're going to go with Ajaccio in Corsica on August 15th, 1769. He had not been a healthy baby, and his mother, Letizia, lavished him with care and devotion. In middle age, she would write about her from St. Helena. My mother has always loved me. She would do anything for me. Boom, main titles. Okay, so reading that, the main point of this story, at least in this little chunk in the beginning, is the connection between Napoleon and his mother. So every shot you are going to do, just, you read it and it's like, okay, it's clearly about him and his mom. That's a very important part of the story because they're beginning the story with this. So every shot you're doing should be emphasizing the relationship between Napoleon and his mother. You know what I mean? Like, every shot should be, how can I render this more tenderly? How can I show the love between these two characters just in this short little moment? Because there's nothing on the screen that says specifics. You could have Napoleon reaching up and touching his mother's face. You could have that because it doesn't specify what the action is here. There's a lot of narration. You got to cover that up with a lot of boards. So like, what are you going to board to show, to really sell to the audience this connection? Because that's clearly the most important part of the story. Because what you want to do when you find out the story point, you internalize it. You want to make the audience feel it. Okay. So I'm going to kind of be repeating myself here, but bear with me. Every shot, character design, camera angle, background, piece of acting, animation, music, dialogue, it's editing, etc. All of it should all be working in perfect harmony to maximize the effect of your story. And that's another thing that's exciting about animation. You get to use all these levers to make your stuff more effective. Like, if you have this like tender emotional scene, you get the banging music that's telling the story. You get just the right ambient sound that sounds perfect for that moment. You get the voice actors to really nail it. You get the animators to really sort of hone in and do the best acting possible, and you do the camera angles just tender and pushing in like you want, So anyway, so with each story beat, you should always know how you want the audience to feel about what's happening. I'll get into the actual examples in a second. There's a bunch of examples, but I lead off with a bunch of talking. I apologize. Here's some air horn. That's my apology. So story beat is the villain has a gun and it's terrifying. So if your story beat is in this, there's a scary character with a gun. If you drew this, you blew it. you messed up. Because one, this guy isn't terrifying. He's small on the screen. He's pointing the gun away from the audience. It's a neutral shot with no point of view. The background doesn't support terror. It's like a neutral looking background, nothing scary about it. He's wearing space diapers. That doesn't intimidate me. Also, this is Sean Connery, rest in peace. We love you. This is a movie that he was in called Zardoz. And it is a truly wild movie. In the first 5 minutes of the movie, a god vomits guns onto a group of warriors. And then Sean Connery climbs into God's mouth. It's wild. Anyway, so if your story point is the villain has a gun and it's terrifying. If you drew this, you blew it. This is not getting the story point across, but that's okay. You can try again. That's all. It's all about learning, people. So if you did this, you're like, okay, he's a little closer to the screen. Maybe this is better, but it's not, because look, we're looking down on him. He doesn't look powerful on the screen. He's in an undignified pose. He's in a bunch of sand. You can't even read that this is a gun immediately. Like, I bet you might not have even noticed that this is a gun because silhouette value, hello. The gun is unclear. It's facing up. It's not facing towards the camera. And the acting isn't intense. He looks like he's like, oh, I'll get a Sunday brunch. Get me bangers and mash. That's a terrible Sean Connery impression. Take it to the bank. Wait a minute. Better, closer, warmer, stronger. There you go. There we go. So look at this. Even the weird, he's pointing the gun right at the audience. It's scary. He looks pissed off. Even in the background supports it. The background, there's people fighting with crazy masks on. Like, it looks fucked up. Like, this is a scary scene. If you saw this in real life, you'd be terrified. And if you saw this in real life, you'd be like, well, what the fuck? What is this Joker doing? You know? So that's where you want to get with your boards. You want to make them terrifying. I talk about Zardoz, whatever. So if your story beat is our character can't enter somewhere and they feel left out. So if you're trying to emphasize visually, they feel left out, they feel bad. Okay, so why does this suck and why do we hate it? Why is this the worst thing to ever happen to anyone? Why does it suck? It sucks big time. And I'll tell you, if this is a class, I'd sort of ask you guys, you guys can sort of like throw out some ideas in the chat or whatever. The main thing, there's a lot of reasons why this sucks, but we'll break them down. One thing that sucks about it is if you look at the characters on the expressions on the expressions on the characters' faces, there's no emotion there. You can't read what emotion they're feeling. Even if you did this, it feels a little better because you're like, oh, this guy feels left out. Oh, and these guys look happy. They're leaving him out. He's got FOMO. They have equal weight on the screen right here. There's not that great of a distance between them. So it's like if he really wanted to, he could just jump the fence and start talking to him. It doesn't look like this is an insurmountable force. What the people are doing doesn't look that cool. If you were to do this better, it would like, the people over there would be, they'd be having a party and this guy's like behind bars looking at him. So I have an example here from the great film, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, one of my favorites as a kid. So I have a clip to show sort of a better version of this same idea, which is a character is missing out on something and they feel left out. So watch this. It's 2 minutes long. I might skip the middle, but anyway, let's get a sense of it.
Triple cream custard, Christopher, Dolce soda for Otis, Sizzler for June Marie, and listen, Wonka's got a new one today.
What is it?
This is called a scrumptious bar.
Scrumdiddlyunctions bar? How does he do it?
My dear boy, do you ask a fish how it swims?
No.
Or a bird how it flies?
No.
No, sirree, you don't. They do it because they were born to do it. Just like Willy Wonka was born to be a candy man, and you look like you were born to be a Wonkerer. Who can take a sunrise and sprinkle it with dew? Cover it in chocolate and a miracle or two. Candyman. The Candyman can. Candyman can. As he mixes it with love and makes the world taste good. Who can take a rainbow?
Let's start skipping through. Anyway, this looks like the most fun in the world, basically. If I'm a little kid, I'm having the time of my life. It's colorful, it's exciting, you're eating candy. This man is like raining candy down on you like some sort of, beautiful Easter bunny. It looks amazing. And then you see all this.
'Cause the Candyman thinks it should.
And then you see this little kid. He looks devastated. He's behind glass. He can't get in. The background behind him is gray and gross and terrible. And all the cool stuff he wants is in front of him and he can't get to it. He's locked out. They did a whole musical number just so he could make this kid feel bad. And it worked great. When I saw it as a kid, I was like, oh my God, Willie. Like this kid, he's got to get to Wonka's, he's got to get to Wonka's factory. He loves candy and he can't get it. I think that is a more effective way of showing that story point, for instance. All right, back to the lesson. Okay, hiding this over here. So we did that. And then here's another one. Characters at work, they feel trapped at their job. The point of the story here is they feel trapped at their job. So this is a perfect example. It's from The Incredibles. This is wonderful. I watched sort of the behind the scenes commentary behind this, and you see like Brad Bird talking about how they used it's like focal length to make the space feel even flatter, and even so he feels even more crushed and stuck, and like he's surrounded everywhere by these he's got this giant beam in his office. Everything is square and blocky and shitty, and he's surrounded by it. It makes him feel trapped. I feel bad for this guy just looking at this one image, and the same thing here. They put the world's largest comedically large beam in his office, but it works. It makes him feel miserable. He's surrounded on all sides by bureaucracy and shitty stuff. His pencils fell on the ground. It makes him feel trapped. It's wildly effective. Because Bob isn't in, Bob Incredible or Bob Parr, he isn't even in this office that long in the terms of the movie, but you really remember it and you really feel it because of how effectively they shot it. And then the same goes for shape language. This is another really exciting thing, is that you can take that. That's one thing that makes this work, is that the shape language of this whole office is square and straight and angular, and nothing's curvy and fun. It just feels like rules and math. So it's like if you take a scene like this, if you're trying to depict childhood, you want to use these wispy. This is from Takahata's last movie. Anyway, I know it. I've seen it, but somebody say it in the chat. But anyway, so you want to render it with these really curvy, beautiful, expressive lines, and it feels softer and more delicate and like childhood because of it. Or on the other hand, it's if you look at the climax of Sleeping Beauty, everything to an even comedic extent is pointy and angular, and you can do this, and and that's one of the great things about animation. You could sort of bend all this. You could bend the reality of the scene to make it more effective. You can make everything all angular and pointy and spiky. For example, it's like whatever your story point is, whatever you're telling, in the story in the beginning by Chase, I think. Maybe you want to render that a little bit more sensitively and with a little bit more rounds and curves and stuff to make it feel like something did when you were a kid, because everything kind of feels safe and round when you're a kid versus if you're, you could render a dragon fight like this, but you could also render, a fight at work, two guys fighting at work. You could draw the cubicles like they're pointing down at the people and everything's angular and scary. You could do that in any situation. It doesn't have to just be a thorny bush or whatever. And you can manipulate everything for effect in animation. That's what's so exciting. Facial expression, background, space, how, the depth of the space. If a character has a hallway behind him, it looks like he's more free and open versus if he has a wall behind him, like me. You could use sound, music, character design, animation, drawing style even. You could draw, if something's really aggressive, you could draw it really aggressive. If something's really tender, you could draw it really tender. You could use lighting, costumes, props, composition, contrast, shape, language, camera movement, posing, clarity, intentional lack of clarity, everything. Sorry, my parents are waking up what is wrong with our boy? And here's an example from American Beauty, a canceled movie. But one of my teachers, I remember when I was at CalArts, Dan Hansen, the great Dan Hansen, sort of use this as an example where it's when Kevin Spacey's being interviewed in the beginning of the movie, he's really small in the screen. He feels really powerless because at this point in the story, he's got no power. So He's really small on the screen. He's engulfed by the background. He's low on the screen too. He feels like, he's like, he's at the level of like trash or something. And this guy, boom, big upshot. He feels powerful. He's sitting tall on the screen. He's high. He's dominating the space. And then later in the movie, when Kevin Spacey turns the tables on him, he's huge on the screen, and this guy's little, and Kevin Spacey's like, the one who's sort of like taking over, and you could see it. Kevin Spacey now canceled, whatever, it's complicated, bad times, but it's an old movie. I'm sorry I even brought it up. We'll edit that out. And that's one thing that's really this is an easy shorthand for how to board a scene in a visual dynamic way, is power dynamics. There's power dynamics in almost every scene, like even like friendships, like your friend who would always play video games and you're like, well, when can I play? You would portray that like one person more powerful in the scene than the other person, even if the power difference is small, or if it's like a cowboy movie, there's a reason that this shot is so used so much. It's because this person, it's really dynamic and it's really powerful, and it makes this person feel totally powerless in the scene, and this person feel really dominant, the person who's in the foreground. Same here. There's this big cool upshot on Clint Eastwood here, and he feels powerful on the screen. If it was a down shot, we're looking down on him, he'd feel weak. So using power dynamics as a shorthand to sort of figure out how to board your scenes is like a good way to dip your toes into like getting into visual dynamics for the first time. This stuff is also called mise en scene, which literally means placing on a stage, and which figuratively means getting across your point in an effective, artful way. Note, you can overdo it. When I first learned about this stuff, I was like, I'm gonna go crazy. He's gonna be small on the screen. He's gonna be dominated. And he's gonna be crying. And then he's gonna be behind a fence. Yeah, baby. And then there's a big old shadow. Yeah, and he's also behind bars, and also a bird shitting on his head. Oh God, it's so visually dynamic. But if you overdo it, it sort of loses the point. It becomes confusing again, because like kind of can't tell what's going on in this shot. This is kind of a more clear shot, or maybe this is a more clear shot. And that could happen. Sort of the same and that same lesson applies to scenes throughout the movie. You want to try to make your shots more intense as the movie goes on, and your scenes more intense as the movie goes on. It depends on what you're building to. But like, you can overdo it, because like in Transformers or whatever, Transformers gets a lot of heat. It's a very entertaining movie, but there are things about it that are kind of funny, where it's like the fights are shot like super intense, cameras moving around, Transformers are kicking ass, but then they also shot the scene about like these parents being like upset that their son is leaving school, and they also shot it like, yeah, we're going around, we're shooting lens flare in the background as he's like, I'm worried I'll never see my son again, like so the visual intensity of the shot or scene should match the story intensity. So if the story intensity goes up, the visual intensity goes up. So as the story becomes more hectic and crazy, the visual intensity gets more hectic and crazy. And you want to start small and build to bigger. The stuff is like the secret sauce of filmmaking. If you do it right, 95% of people won't even notice you're doing it. They'll just notice they liked it. It's like it happens oftentimes when people are like, hey man, did you notice on that Paul Thomas Anderson the movie there was a 14-minute unbroken shot? I noticed. And it's like, if you're thinking about the 14-minute unbroken shot, the shot's it's not working, because you're thinking about the filmmaking instead of thinking about what's happening in the story. You don't want this like, oh, dope use of mise en scene, bro. Was that an 18-minute long shot I spied? Exquisite. You want this like, oh, he loves her. Oh God, I can't handle it. Or whatever. All I mean is they should be thinking about the story and not how cool the shots are. So it's like everything should be pointing towards the story and not pointing to like, look at this cool camera move I did. Anyway, and this isn't just for intense action movies. It could also heighten comedy, drama, horror, whatever. So I'm going to show you a clip now from Raging Bull, which to me is like one of the best movies of all time. I love it. And we're going to watch a scene, and it uses a lot of the concepts that we've talked about in the rest of the deal. And in the other, like, it uses contrast and all these things we talked about last week and the week before. All right, so this is kind of a long clip, but we'll just kind of watch it. It's gonna be great. Take me away. Woo!
Those chairs, they still ring in my ears. And for years, they remain in my thoughts. Because one night, I took off my robe, and what I do, I forgot to wear shorts. I recall every fall, every hook, every jam.
Sorry, just to give you a little bit of context. This is the total beginning of the movie. We don't know anything. This is about a old boxer later in his life. Anyway.
The worst way a guy can get rid of his flab. As you know, my life wasn't drab. Though I'd rather hear you cheer when you delve. Though I'd rather hear you cheer when I delve into Shakespeare. A horse, my kingdom for a horse. I haven't had a winner in 6 months. Though I'm no Olivier, I would much rather. And though I'm no Olivier, if before Sugar Ray would say that the thing ain't the ring, it's the play. So give me a stage where there's bullhead and rage. And though I can fight, I'd much rather recite. That's entertainment. That's entertainment.
Jake LaMotta and Jimmy Reeves in the Cleveland Arena. LaMotta is undefeated, but he's well behind on points. The Bronx Bull has taken a lot of punishment in this bout. Jake is cut around the leg.
Jack, tell me why. Why the fuck do we have to come to Cleveland for you to get beat by Moulignon? Come on, Jack, do the fucking right thing here.
You got you by the balls, Jake. You're outpointed. You're coming up for a 10th. You're going to have to knock him out.
I want you to fight him, kick him, do anything you gotta do. Nobody's looking, you know what to do.
Listen to Joe.
It's like all over the fucking movie. Knock him motherfucker out. You understand? Knock him out.
Hey, you want to go in there? You want to go in there?
Let's go get a knockout, and that's where it's at. Come on, that's in the final round. Good luck, people.
Okay, that's sort of that's a little clip. That's enough of a thing. But I just want to talk about this because I feel like every shot in this is like Martin Scorsese, one of the king of all kings. Every shot in this has a purpose, and every shot of this is portraying the story better than it was on the page because it's telling it visually. For example, this shot of just this like old boxer reciting this weird old poem is like it's all in one blocked off, unbroken shot for like 2 minutes. And when you're watching it, you get a little bit bored. You're like, what's going on? He's talking about this fucking poem forever. What is this poem? What is he doing? And it's kind of like it's kind of brilliant because one, it shows how he's like old and sad in his old age. He's this lone man in this empty, broken down room. He's like a big guy now. He's sort of like, he looks like he's past his prime. He's smoking. He looks like hell. And then it goes from that, and it uses contrast because it has this one unbroken shot for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And then it goes into like the craziest boom, wang, bang, wham, bam action scene, like it's cutting constantly. And it's like, it's using contrast. That room was light. This room is dark. That room was like where it was a long unbroken shot. This room is like 30 shots in 5 seconds. And it makes you, and it goes from like looking at Jake LaMotta sitting in a room to feeling what he feels and being where he's at and sort of seeing his point of view. This is like what he would see in the ring as he's fighting. Like that was one of the things that Scorsese was just trying to get with his boxing movies. Like, how can I make it feel like the audience is in the ring? And this is like as close as you can get. And he's about, this guy feels like he's really like, big and powerful on screen, but he doesn't get a chance to get a hit off. Then we go to this shot where there's this big, crazy, I'm going to turn the sound off. There's this really fast move in to LaMotta, and everyone's talking around him, and he's bleeding, and he's laying there. Like, all these choices are made intentionally. The big push-in moves really fast, and because of contrast, watch what happens when we see the other guy. Everyone's surrounding him. They're pouring stuff on him. He feels really powerless because everyone's descending in on him. Versus, same deal here. He's powerless in the screen. Everyone's higher than him and surrounding him. But when you go to his opponent, the camera's moving real slow. He's calm, he's collected, he doesn't look beat up. Like this guy like looks like he's in charge of the scene. And all these choices are intentional. And whether they're intentional because they were planned out meticulously on paper, or they're intentional just in that felt right at the moment, you know? And then this is just thrown in like to just make this whole scene feel more chaotic and exciting, because we just came from this like really kind of dull, boring scene of him talking. So it goes from like the most boring thing you can imagine to the most exciting thing you can imagine. A street fight in the middle of a boxing match. And then we do this really cool, like, because all these shots are really stylish, but they all have a reason for being. So we have this like cool, like, because this guy's in control, the camera's following him around his head. He's not moving, but the camera's like bending to his will, you know, versus Robert De Niro, the camera's kind of shaky and like barely has him in focus. You know, and now that this guy's winning the fight, he's higher on the screen, he's more powerful. Robert De Niro's lower and more, powerless and vulnerable in this scene now, because this guy's winning the fight. Anyway, the fun thing about this is you could break down almost any movie like this. Take any great movie and you could just break it down using like common sense. Like, okay, what is the story about? What shots did they choose to make that story, work? You could also do the same thing with bad movies where you can watch it and be like, why didn't this work? And you could try to break it down that way. I've done both, and it's really fun. And that's a really good way to get good at storyboards, where it's like copying your favorite filmmakers and then trying to do your own boards, and then looking at the copies of the filmmaker and saying, what are they doing that I'm not, cool. There's other examples, but I think I want to push through. Maybe we'll get back to 21 Jump Street in a second. And here's just like a tip in terms of the way I used to board is like, I do sort of like a barf it out pass first, or I write a script first, and then I get into business. Like I really just do it really rough and simple and dirty. I even want to show you something. It's a little peek behind the whatever here. This is about at this point. I even do the lessons like that. Like I do the lessons really rough and shitty first, like this. And then I go back and I sort of put the whole thing together and I see if it works in this really rough form. And then I go in and do it a little better, but not much. So I think it's to me, a good way to do it is just to get a quick pass out first. It's really crazy rough. And then watch it or go through it in your head and then see if it's working and see if you can make adjustments, because it's easier to make adjustments before you go in and you're like, and his boot has 33 laces, like you want to save that stuff for the end when you're really trying to polish it. And really with storyboards, you might not even ever want to get there to the point where you're drawing all the laces on his boot. The best board artists I know, when they have to draw trees, they're like, trees, they just draw it the quickest, like, okay, that's kind of a marshmallowy shape and a stick, and then there's a horizon line and you're done with the background. Okay, cool. So we're gonna do that at the end. But so then, knowing what we know now, it's like, how would you now emphasize this? Now, how would you draw this like teddy bear scene with little baby Napoleon being read to by his mom? You might do it differently now. Like we did this in class. I did this with my class, and all the class did a really great job. They would draw, the mother reading the Napoleon, and it was right next to a fire. And Napoleon was on this soft blanket, and Napoleon's face was super close to his mom's, and there was a light behind her face sort of highlighting, like it was dark, but there was like a little halo around Napoleon and the mom that really emphasized their connection. You could also do point of view shots, all this stuff. Anyway, so basically at the end of this lesson, we're going to do another single shot of a mother reading to her child. And once you have all this knowledge, you're soaking it up like a sorry warrior. You'll vomit it out as a beautiful new storyboard. So, how can you emphasize the story point with lighting, space, size, background, and shape language? Use all the tools at your disposal. Okay, so that's lesson 1. That's part 1. Part 2 is show, don't tell. So I'm going to show you 2 clips. One I'm going to kind of dunk on a little bit, but it's an old movie. And I'm going to show you, and you could tell me which one you think is more works better. First one is a movie called Solar Babies. Weirdly produced by Mel Brooks.
We live in the new time. Year is 41, and the Protectorate controls all the water on Earth, and therefore, all life. I am the warden of Orphanage 43, one of the many orphanages that border the wasteland. Children are brought here at an early age to be indoctrinated, to serve the system. It hurts me to do what I do. I, too, must serve the system. Sometimes in my dreams, I see the earth as it was before, green with flowing rivers and mighty oceans. Can it ever be like that again? There is a legend, a tale told by the Chicatis, that speaks of a visitor that came from the heavens. The people called it Bodai. The legend says that it has come to Earth to free the waters once again. Is this legend true? Who knows?
Okay, then the movie starts. Okay, that's one movie. Keep that in your mind. Keep that in your mental, I don't know, box, your mental brain, your brain. And here's another movie. What? Come on. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. It's Reggie Bull again. That's the credits.
Mosques.
The Homeland Security Bill is...
Occupation of mosques.
The Homeland Security Bill is ratified. After 8 years, British borders will remain closed. The deportation of illegal immigrants will continue. Good morning. Our lead story.
The world was stunned today by the death of Diego Ricardo, the youngest person on the planet. Baby Diego was stabbed outside a bar in Buenos Aires after refusing to sign an autograph.
Witnesses at the scene say that Diego spat in the face of a fan who asked for an autograph. He was killed in the ensuing brawl. The fan was later beaten to death by the angry crowd. Born in 2009, the son of Marcelo and Silvia Ricardo, a working-class couple from Mendoza, he struggled all his life with the celebrity status thrust upon him as the world's youngest person.
Diego Ricardo, the youngest person on the planet, was 18 years, 4 months, 20 days, 16 hours, and 8 minutes old.
Okay, so that was kind of intense. But the reason why I wanted to show it is because I think one of those stories, so remember you got the one Solar Babies, Bodai, and then you got one Children of Men. I would argue that the Children of Men was much stronger because it was showing and not telling. That Solar Babies movie, it was this long narration. I don't remember a word of it. I remember the name Bodai, and I remember that the guy doesn't like his job, but I don't remember anything about that world that he explained. It was sort of like, because it was just told to you it was sort of like you didn't experience it, you were told it, so, but whereas Children of Men, you're finding out obliquely that this, you're like, why is it important that this is the world's youngest person? And then it's sort of like priming you and you're curious and you're like, and then you see everyone and they're all like shattered by this information. And you're like, okay, so everyone's sad about the world's youngest person. And you're leading in and you're like, what's going on? you know, and then it's like this one guy, this guy doesn't care that the world's oldest baby died. He's just getting coffee and walking away. And then you're seeing outside and you're seeing like, okay, this is in the future. It's on all these screens. It's like kind of futuristic, but it's not that far in the future. And then you see him like pouring Jack into his coffee, and you're like, okay, it seems like this guy's an alcoholic or he's got some problems. And then there's an explosion, and you're like, whoa, this world is like violent and exciting. And then there's like, it's really intense. A woman has her arm blown off. Like, it's telling you so much, and you're so locked in because it's not treating you like a dummy. Like, it has to just lay out every piece of information to the audience. Like, and then this happened, and then this happened. Like, they never say, listen, we live in a society where babies aren't allowed to be born anymore. We don't know how it stopped, but at some point people stopped having babies, you know, and then, you know, Clive Owen comes in. It's like, I don't care about people not having babies. I just want to get drunk. You know, like all of those things would be less interesting because you'd be telling instead of showing. You always want to try to dramatize your story points as opposed to push them onto the audience. It's the same thing where it's like, you know, it's just like making somebody curious. Like, I think if you said to somebody like, you know, even if you told someone a really interesting story, but you were yelling it all at them really quickly, like, hey, there's a story about this guy, Charles Foster Kane. He lost everything, but he secretly wanted his sled because that was his humanity. And anyway, I gotta go. You'd be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? But if you're like, there was a man, and he was, you know, he was a great man, and he was a newspaper magnate, but there was a hole in his heart. What was it? Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. What was it? Tell me more, mystery man, you know? So anyway, that's just saying, show, don't tell. So imagine, like I said, imagine doing that with a bunch of dialogue, like I just did. Audiences are smart and they want to be challenged. That's something that, like, I feel like sometimes movie studios don't give audiences enough credit. And they're like, we should explain this to the people. Have you ever seen a movie like that where they're like, you know, well, here we are in, here we are in Jakku, and as you know, you're a droid and I'm a man, and the droid-human friendship pact has been in order since 3055, and as you know, we have lightsabers. Like, you know, people hate that shit. That's why Star Wars is so exciting, because it doesn't give you any of the shoe leather. It just throws you in, and it's like, yeah, there's droids, whatever, figure it out. Yeah, there's like, you know, there's this guy in a black robe trying to kill people. Like, just go. It's so much better to be thrown into a story like that. So, because they'll sometimes accept that, but they want this. They want to be pulled in. So learn how to visualize the internals. And this principle extends to everything. I'm going to show you a bunch of clips right now. I might not show everything, but I'll show at least a couple. Because it's like, you can write down, you can have a character say, I want love. But it's not that interesting if they say, I want love. It's more interesting if you see that they want love and you're experiencing them wanting love. Like this, I'm going to use WALL-E as an example. Hopefully you've all seen WALL-E. No spoilers. Okay, there you go. Sorry, hopefully you didn't weren't bothered by my parents' dogs barking. But yeah, I mean, so basically, I mean, the reason why I wanted to show the scene is because to me, I think the scene is so effective in feeling what this little robot guy is feeling, because you see him alone, and you see how lonely he is, and you see that they visually do such a good job of showing in the first few minutes, like how small and alone he is, and just how there's nothing left in the world except him, you know? Like all these super wide shots, these dead robots in the foreground. I didn't show that part, but it's like it spends a long time really emphasizing that this like little robot guy is lonely, and you start feeling for him. And then they're giving you sort of exposition in this like kind of nice, like instead of Solar Babies where they just load it up in the front, they're giving it to you sort of as you're watching the story. So it's like you're getting it a little bit more naturally. And again, all these super wide shots, they're there to emphasize how small Wally is, how alone he is. You know, you see this, like he's got this whole weird routine. He's kind of eccentric. He likes old movies. And then when he watches this, you zoom in on his eyes and he sees it and he records it. So you know it's important to him. He sees these hands being put together. There's this like really nice subtle acting of him cocking his little head, puts his little hands together. And then for the rest of the movie, you're in. You want this little robot to have love so bad. You're like, all right, I'll whatever it takes. I'll watch the rest of the movie. Like, I need this little guy to find love. I was rooting for him so hard in the movie, because they did such a great job visualizing and dramatizing his want, as opposed to him just saying, Wally wants love. If he said that, they would, you know, the other robots would probably try to destroy him. Cool. So that's that. And then sort of, and then, like, for example, I'll just show one more example that's sort of this in this vein, but it's like, you could have a character say, I'm in love with you, or you could have this. This is from the movie Rushmore. This one I'm going to skip around a little bit in because I remember showing this in class and being I'm like, whoa, this is way too long. But so instead of like, because you could have a line of dialogue that says, I'm in love with you, or you can have this, which I think is much more interesting.
I thought I'd just let you know as per our conversation of the day. Latin. Right, the Romance languages.
The story is about a teenage boy who sort of falls in love with this teacher at his school.
Well, I gave a little speech.
I heard about this.
Oh, you did?
I understand you made a very convincing argument.
Just thought you'd be pleased to hear it. They're going to continue the Latin program.
I'm very impressed.
Thank you very much. Hey, you need an assistant?
Do we get to have an assistant around here?
No, I doubt it. I'm on scholarship, though. Academic scholarship, so I get to do odd jobs. Say, how'd you decide to teach at Rushmore?
My husband went here.
I didn't know you were married.
Well, he's dead now, so I'm not actually.
When did he die?
Last year.
My mother's dead.
I'm sorry to hear that.
She died when I was 7. We both have dead people in our families. What's going on in here?
These were just for me.
I don't want alloys. I want steel. I don't give a rat's ass what he says. Steel, Harry.
So you've changed your mind and you want the job?
No, but I've got an idea and I need some money.
What Rushmore needs is an aquarium. A first-class aquarium where the scientists can lecture and the students can observe the marine life in its natural habitat.
I don't know. What do you think, Ernie? An aquarium? What kind of fish?
Barracuda.
Okay, so that's part one, and then she just says she likes fish, and then he's sort of like, we need an aquarium. And he goes to all this like insane trouble. He's like studying fish. He's planning this aquarium. He's buying exotic fish. He's showing it to her. He's giving her class. Okay, and then this is the next scene. She's grading papers in the room.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Has it ever crossed your mind that you're far too young for me?
It crossed my mind that you might consider that a possibility.
So great. Okay. So the reason I'm showing that is because it's like she infers from his actions instead of inferring from him saying "I love you" or whatever. She's like, she notices him filling up her lemonade, which is very funny to me. And then he, like, you know, she runs out of a pen and he has like one immediately for her. He's saying with his actions, "I'm in love with you," and he doesn't need to say it. And it's like so apparent to this adult that he's in love with her that she's like, "Hey man, you're 15. This isn't gonna work." And another thing I want to just talk about in terms of like mise en scene or whatever. And again, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that French. People that speak French, I apologize. But I think this scene is so nice because, you know, she's sort of talking about her husband, and then as soon as she mentions, he's like feeding the fish, and as soon as she mentions her husband, he drops the fish food in the in the container. Like, he never says in the movie that he loves her, and he never confides it in anyone. You can just tell him by the way he's acting, and it's so much more interesting and compelling that way. And it's like he tries to fish out the fish food, but he can't get it out. And another thing that's interesting here in terms of like mise en scene or whatever, you have this bar separating them when they're talking about, you know, like it's literally separating them visually. But then when when they bond over both having dead people in their family, they become closer, and there's no bar separating them all of a sudden. All of a sudden they're even closer than they were before. She's right next to him, and he notices, and then that's when he decides he needs to build her an aquarium. And it's such a wild expression of love, but it's because it's so weird, it's memorable, and it's showing and not telling. You get it? All right. Okay. Okay, that's the end of the clips for now, at least. So yeah, and it extends to everything basically. You know, and the same thing with, like, you know, you can have a character say "I love you," or you could do it in a more specific, remember last week, and observed, also remember last week, way, where you're like, where you're like, they're building on each other. These are building on each other. Where like, where for instance, like if, you know, it's like, for example, here's this weird detail from my life. You know, my wife and I, for some reason, we found these like weird Hanes Michael Jordan baseball cards. They were in like, I don't know, a pack of Hanes or something. And we'll like hide them in our apartment for each other. And every time I find the little Michael Jordan Hanes card, I'm like, oh, it sort of feels like her saying "I love you," you know? And that's like a more interesting, compelling way to have a character show their affection for each other, because it's weird and specific. That idea might be too specific because it's like nobody besides my wife and I understand it. But like, you know, what are the rituals that you and your friends do that show that you're good friends? So next time you're writing a story about friendship, you can think back and be like, oh yeah, me and my friends would always go to 7-Eleven and drink Slurpees together. That was like our friendship. That was the thing that showed how good of friends we are. Or we cut each other and did the thumb thing. You know, like, it's like, how can you show somebody's best friends without saying those words? Because it becomes more compelling if you're showing it instead of telling it. Anyway, directors will love you if you can visualize everything. There were storyboard artists that would do this like automatically. I used to say that like any storyboard artist that could get rid of a line of dialogue with an action or a look or an expression or anything, if you could erase a line of dialogue from the movie, I would give you $20 because it meant like the movie was more interesting and more visual. it's why I think this like kind of Napoleon opening is kind of lame, because the narrator is like, Napoleon was born in Ajaccio and August 15th, 1716. It's just like to me, it's an unengaging way to make this, to open the movie. But if you can sort of fight against this and try to show it visually instead of, all of the things that are written here, you can show visually. Like, for example, you can open on, a wide shot of this town in Corsica, and you could sort of go past this, you could sort of follow a carriage, the carriage is going along and the camera's following it. And then you see a sign saying they're in Corsica. And then, and then you hear a lullaby, and then the camera goes in, and you sort of like go into a window, sort of same shot, and you see a woman reading to her baby. And all of a sudden you're getting a lot of the same information that you would have gotten through a narrator talking, but now you're getting it visually, and now it's more interesting. I'm really driving that point home, guys. I'm really driving it home. But it's because it's really important, because I knew this lesson before I made this, the movie Connected that's coming out. It used to be called The Mental Source of Machines. Just in case you're confused. I don't know. But we used to have a scene early in the movie that was supposed to, and it was in there to show how much, because the whole movie is about this relationship between a father and a daughter. And we used to have a dialogue scene of the father talking about how much the daughter meant to him. And it always felt like nothing. The movie didn't work because the scene was boring, because it was just a guy saying, well, I love my daughter. And everyone in the audience was like, I'm bored, But we added in this scene, which I can't show because the movie's not out yet. But part of it's in the trailer, so I can show that. But like, because we added the scene of Rick watching these old home movies of what Katie was like as a young girl and what their relationship used to be like. So instead of him saying, we used to get along really well, you're seeing how well they got along. And because you're seeing it and experiencing it through his eyes, you're like, oh my God, I want that for him. And all of a sudden the movie worked. And that was like literally the difference between the movie working and not working. Like, people being bored and people being engaged was visual storytelling. Anyway, so we talked about showing, not telling. We talked about all this stuff, but there's even more. This is subjective storytelling. Also, keep a count of the air horns. I got a counter here. It lets me know exactly how many air horns I've done, and I need you to follow along. Okay. Subjective storytelling. This one is so important. It's so important. Look, they're all important, but this one's really important because this is really often the difference between beginners and between people who are sort of like just starting out and people who are like doing cool cinematic storytelling. Like, if you are able to board using subjective storytelling, you have a much better chance of getting a job. This makes the audience feel like an active participant in your story. This is the best. Remember when we talked about making the audience feel like an active participant last week, when we were talking about like, oh, they're engaged because, oh, he loves the puppy, and then the puppy got taken away. This also will make the audience feel like an active participant in a story. This will instantly make your boards more cinematic. So it's this, which again, there's nothing wrong with these boards. But SpongeBob has a very simple, objective style where often you're on wide shots and you're seeing characters walking along the side of the screen. And the jokes are so funny and the dialogue is so good and memorable that they get away with it. And that's sort of like, that's the style of that show. But you will be more impressive if you're able to do this, which is using more subjective sort of advanced storytelling. And again, I love SpongeBob to death, but it just is a different style than sort of filmic storyboarding. They each have their pros and cons, but I'm sort of here, singing the praises of subjective storytelling, because the thing that's nice about these boards, which I used last week as well, or the first week, is that you're always seeing the world through the perspective of a character. You're seeing this girl through this guy's eyes, and then sometimes you're seeing this guy through this girl's eyes. And because you're seeing what the character's seeing, you feel more engaged in the story, or at least I do. So I want to show you, again, I'm going to show you two examples of two films. I'm going to show you this old movie called Gun Crazy, which is an old thriller, and then I'm going to show you a newer thriller. Well, newer, it's like 20 years old. Silence of the Lambs. So let's look at Gun Crazy. And I'm going to hope against hope that Prime Video is going to hold up for this. Get rid of my dumb face. Come on, Prime Video.
Mommy, let's go home. My heart, my darling.
E-series, same as the one from the hotel. Thank you.
Sorry to give you a little, sorry to cut in here, but I wanted to say that this movie is about these two husband and wife criminals, and they're on the run right now. So.
All right, come on, Laurie, come on.
Okay. The reason why I'm showing this is the climax of the movie, and it's supposed to be terrifying, and it's supposed to be where the characters are the most afraid you've ever seen them. And to me, when I watch it, I don't feel afraid for them at all. They just look like a couple of people running across the screen a bunch of times. I can't even really see their faces being that scared. I don't think that this movie does a traditionally great job of showing characters being afraid. And I think that the film language has really evolved since then. I don't think there's anything wrong with Gun Crazy, but it's like a product of its time. But look at this scene in Silence of the Lambs. Oh crap, I gotta find it. That's all right. I'm gonna find it quick. Yeah, here we go. Also, content warning, there's some gross stuff in this. So if you don't want to see gross stuff, keep a look at it. Okay. Or might not want to watch this.
So to speak.
I graduated from UVA, doctor. It's not a charm school.
Good, then you should be able to remember the rules. Do not touch the glass. Do not approach the glass. You pass in nothing but soft paper. No pencils or pens. No staples or paper clips in this paper. Use the sliding fruit carrier. No exceptions. If he attempts to pass you anything, do not accept it. Do you understand me?
I understand, sir.
I'm going to show you why we insist on such precautions. On the afternoon of July 8, 1981, he complained of chest pains and was taken to the dispensary. His mouthpiece and restraints were removed for an EKG. When the nurse leaned over him, he did this to him. The doctors managed to reset her jaw, more or less, save one of her eyes. His pulse never got above 85, even when he ate her tongue. I keep him in here.
Dr. Chilton. If Lecter feels that you're his enemy, then well, maybe we'll have more luck if I clean by myself. What do you think?
You might have suggested this in my office and saved me the time.
Yes, sir. Then I would have missed the pleasure of your company, sir.
When she's finished, bring her out.
Hi, I'm Barney. He told you don't get near the glass.
Yes, he did. Clarice Starling.
Mm-hmm. Nice to meet you, Clarice. You can hang your coat up here if you like. He's past the others. The last cell. You keep to the right. Put on a chair for you.
Oh, yes, that's very good. Thank you.
I'll be watching. You'll do fine.
Morning. Dr. Lecter, my name is Clarice Starling. May I speak with you?
You're one of Jack Crawford's, aren't you?
I am, yes.
May I see your credentials?
Certainly.
Closer, please. Closer. That expires in 1 week. You're not really an FBI, are you?
I'm still in training at the academy.
Jack Crawford sent a trainee to me.
Yes, I'm a student. I'm here to learn from you. Maybe you can decide for yourself whether or not I'm qualified enough to do that.
That is rather slippery of you, Agent Starling. Sit, please. Now then, tell me, what did Miggs say to you?
Okay, whatever. All right. So, the reason I'm showing this is to show the power of subjective storytelling. Subjective meaning you're seeing the world through a character's eyes. Just like in that Gun Crazy movie where we just saw the characters run by the screen and it was supposed to be scary. In this scene, it is supposed to be scary. And to me, it's scary as shit because you're seeing the world through this character's eyes, going into this like dark dungeon of hell, and you're seeing exactly what she's seeing. This is like Jonathan Demme, the director. This is like one of the things that he sort of like really perfected, which is these subjective point of view shots. Like you're not only sort of seeing her go through all these scary gates and the gates are closing and the doors are locking, but you're also literally seeing what she's seeing. And it's like, have you ever been in a place where you're like, this place is a little fucked up, where you're like, I don't like what's going on over there. This guy looks like a junkie. What's going on? You know, like, you're seeing like, okay, there's security cameras, that's freaking me out. You know, there's all these bars, there's this guy, look at all these weapons on the wall, like they need all of these weapons to take care of these people, like that's freaking me out. This guy like is friendly, but he's also staring right into my soul here. So she goes in, and again, you're seeing exactly what she's seeing. So you feel like you're in her shoes at this point. So to me, it makes all this stuff even scarier because you're experiencing what she's experiencing. This guy's like smiling, but he's also behind the bars. Like he's safe and you're fucked, you're inside. You know, so she's walking down the hall. We see exactly what she sees. We see these inmates, even the camera's like moving like your head would move. This Tak Fujimoto's the cinematographer in this. He's brilliant. You know, and then you see Hannibal Lecter, and he's just standing in the middle of the room, staring right into your soul from the first moment. It's terrifying. And it's like, as he gets closer to the light and is like looking further and further at you, and you're also seeing what he's seeing. You're also getting his experience of how scared she is. She's kind of stuttering, she's like digging around in her purse for the, you know, so you're getting both experiences. You're getting her experience, the emotions on her face, and you're also getting to see what she's seeing and seeing how scary the things she's seeing are. Versus in that gun crazy movie, you couldn't see any of the expressions on any of their faces. And you also never saw what they saw. So you never knew what they were afraid of. And the filmmaking was just like people running across the screen all the time. And just like, look, this is like one of the like scariest, this is like one of the most, this is like why this won Best Pictures, how scary this image is. And just like seeing how intense Anthony Hopkins is looking directly into your soul, scaring the hell out of you. Because if this guy was looking at you that intensely and you know he's a serial killer, you'd lose your mind. Anyway, I can go on and on, but that's a little bit on subjective storytelling, and we're going to talk about it even more right now. Whatever. I'll just quickly tell this story. Like I did a test. I sort of did a test for a regular show when I was trying to become a storyboard artist, and I got rejected. Hey yo. But one of the things that was interesting about it is I was like, oh, okay, regular show. It uses like this kind of like, it's like it has a really simple style, so I'll try to replicate that simple style. And I didn't get the job, and it was interesting because I was later worked on Gravity Falls, and I was part of one of the people that was judging who would get a job and not. All of a sudden, I was on the other side of the screen, and people who would like try to board things like safely and like the way they thought the movie should go, the way they thought the style of a TV series should go, tended not to get the jobs. The people that got the jobs were the people who were like, I'm gonna board this like a movie, and they use subjective storytelling, and they use cool angles, and they try to make it as dynamic as possible, and they try to tell the story visually. Those are the people that got the jobs, and it made me realize why I didn't get that regular show job, among other reasons. So yeah, again, so it's like, let's talk about the sort of the scene we talked about earlier. Remember this lame board I did here, of this woman reading to the boy? It's a relatively clear drawing. You could tell that it's a woman reading to at least something in a crib. But it doesn't tell the story subjectively. It doesn't tell the story visually. And because it doesn't have that perspective, it's not as strong as it could be. Because look at this, like, a well-worn teddy bear is cradled in the arms of Napoleon, age 4, who dreamily sucks his thumb, listening to a bedtime story told by his young mother, Letizia, whatever. So you could tell the story from an objective standpoint and board it really straight and flat, or you could board it from Napoleon's perspective, and you could look up and see the mother reading to him and see her warm, loving face and a ray of light behind her. Like, see, like I placed the window behind her, so everything is dark except around the mom. There's like this kind of almost angelic light behind her. Same for, you could board it objectively, or you could board it subjectively, and you could see the mom's perspective. Sorry, this baby's horrific, but you could see the mom's perspective of this baby and sort of how much the baby loves her. So you feel like between this shot and this shot, you're feeling the connection more deeply than you were in here. Even though this is like a nice mom reading to her baby, it doesn't hit you as hard as this shot, and it doesn't hit you as hard as this shot, even though, again, these aren't the greatest boards in the world. And this is something that we did over and over. And you could do the same thing, because the story mentions, even it would be more interesting because the story mentions that there's a second brother. If the second brother is like watching the mother and son read to each other, and he's on the outside of it, and they look really in love, and the little brother feels left out, like that creates meaning, and that creates a point of view, and that makes the story more interesting than this boring garbage. And the same thing happened in the movie tons of times. Like, even though we had like the best story team in the world, sometimes when you're boarding, you're just going fast and you do things kind of objectively. Like, you can't really tell, but this is the family in robot suits getting like whipped around this, whatever. It's like they're in this like kind of tram thing, and they're getting like spun around. And we boarded it really objectively at first. And then sort of like Chris and Phil, who are so great, made the suggestion like, oh, you should do it more subjectively, so you can feel what it feels like to be tumbling around in there. And then once we did, the scene worked a lot better, because it made you feel like one of the family members. Instead of watching them like somebody at a stage play, you were like in a movie where you were experiencing what they were experiencing. It was like, what would it be like to be, the camera's flying around and your dad flies past you, it sort of puts you in the shoes of the characters. And because of that, it makes it more interesting. So that's subjective storytelling. You should do it. It's great. One of the things to keep track of when you're sort of boarding, it's like POV shots are one of the keys to engagement in stories. So it's like The difference between this and this is huge. This is like the difference between a cinematic board and sort of like a more beginner type board. You know, this one's more cinematic, this one's more towards a beginner. Like, and again, there's nothing wrong. You'll often have to do, I'm not trying to say that objective shots are bad at all. You have to do them all the time. You'll have to do them for clarity or, you know, whatever. But cutting to these subjective shots really makes the experience of watching a movie feel more real, and you feel like you're more in the shoes of your characters. So when you guys do end up doing boards based on your stories that you've written, try to use some of these techniques, and the story will feel more engaging, I promise you. And another thing, this is a real simple thing. I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm gonna see if I can fix it or change it. So see how the mom is like looking almost directly at the camera? It's really, this is called like being on axis, where if you could see me instead of seeing what's on the screen, like look at me now. Like if you have a character looking like right off camera, it's almost like they're looking at the audience, and it's more engaging. And if you have a character looking like this, hey, like for instance, if you have a close up at the end of your movie where the main character says "I love you" or something, and she's like, "I love you," like this is less engaging than this. She says, "I love you." Then you really feel it, because you're like, oh, I feel like I'm in the story and she's saying it to me, versus "I love you," because it just kind of feels like, oh, who's she talking to? She's talking to somebody over here. So that's one thing. It's just like this. That's a little note of. But I always noticed that I did that in the movie. I would be like, "Could we get the camera to be more on axis here?" So because I was noticing I wasn't feeling the moment as emotionally as I used to be. So I was like, oh, it was because in the storyboards the character was looking right at the screen, and then in the animation they were looking over here. So I would just get them to take the character in Maya and move them right here. Anyway, so this is part 4, camera. This is another exciting thing, because you don't think about camera when you're drawing, you know, but when you're making things in 3D, you know, when you're making an animated feature, if you're making a TV show with 3D characters, or even if you're making a Miyazaki movie that's 2D but it feels cinematic or whatever, the camera is really important, because every shot should have intention. So I'm going to show you a scene of Catch Me If You Can, from Catch Me If You Can. I used Spielberg movies in the sense that the Pixar guys, when I was learning at Pixar, they would always say use Spielberg, because Spielberg is really transparent in his filmmaking. Like Scorsese is sometimes like kind of a poet, and he's really like, maybe I'm doing a little bit of this, and he's harder to read, but Spielberg is really great, because it's like he's always trying to get emotions out of the audience, and to do so he's like a master of sort of manipulating them. But because he's trying to manipulate the audience, you can kind of understand what he's doing just by watching one of his movies. I'm not saying manipulation in a bad way at all. He's incredibly effective at it. He's one of the best directors of all time. But anyway, let's take a look at the scene from Catch Me If You Can. The story here is that this is towards the beginning of the movie, so it's not spoiling anything. It's that Leonardo DiCaprio is a criminal, and Tom Hanks is this guy who's trying to catch him. And this is in the beginning of the movie, but it's like a cold open that starts at the end of the story. So you're seeing the end of the story here, and then you go back to the beginning. But I just want to show you a little bit of the end of the story and a little bit of the beginning of the story, and then we're going to break down. I'm going to try to explain what each of the shots is doing using all of these tools that I talked about before. How he's using the camera to emphasize all these story points. So let's watch. I'll break it.
Let's hear it.
Sorry, hold on. It's in Hindi right now. No, it's in English. Turn off the subtitles. I'll leave the subtitles on. Okay, sorry. Leonardo DiCaprio is in prison, and he's trying to escape from the people he's in prison in France, and they're trying to take him into jail in America. So they're going to take him away from the prison. So this is his final escape attempt.
Let's go home.
The New Rochelle Rotary Club has a history that goes back to 1919. In all those years, we've only seen a handful of deserving gentlemen inducted as lifetime members. It's an honor that has seen 57 names enshrined on the Wall of Honor, and tonight we make it 58. So please stand as I present my very good friend, a man who keeps our pencils sharp and our pens in ink, Frank William Abagnale.
I stand here humbled by the presence of Mayor Robert Wagner and our club president, Jack Barnes. Most of all, I'm honored to see my loving wife, Paula, and my son, Frank Jr. Sitting in the front row. Two little mice fell in a bucket of cream. The first mouse quickly gave up and drowned. The second mouse wouldn't quit. He struggled so hard that eventually he turned that cream into butter and crawled out. Gentlemen, as of this moment, I am that second mouse.
Okay, so let's break it down, baby. So, talk about sort of what we were talking about before, like what is the story point of this scene? Story point of the first scene is that this guy is caught. Let me get my dumb face in here. Story point of the first scene is that this guy has been caught. Story point of the second scene is that what's his name? Christopher Walken, who is Leonardo DiCaprio's dad, is being honored. And Leonardo DiCaprio loves his dad. That's one of the points of the movie, is how much Leonardo DiCaprio loves his dad and sort of like has this need for a father figure, right? So let's just kind of break down this scene shot by shot a little bit. Okay, so Leonardo DiCaprio is on the run, but it seems like he's gonna get caught. So let's. So you see this big panning shot. One, it's like an economical shot because you're seeing all these prisoners like cheering him on or whatever, but you're also seeing, boom, see how little he is in frame and how powerless he is and how everything in the shot is saying that he's gonna lose. Like everything in the shot is telling him how powerless this guy is, and he's really small on frame. And even when the camera gets closer, he's now on his knees. He's coughing, he can barely walk, and he starts crawling, and he can't even make it. And even though he's getting more like powerful because he's getting further away, he's still low on the screen, and who's behind him? All these cops that are gonna take him away forever. And he's trying to get away, and these guys are shot the opposite of Frank. These guys are shot, or the opposite of Leonardo DiCaprio. Frank Abagnale's character's name. They're shot really powerful. They're walking strong, and like they're about to kick some ass. It's an up shot of them. It's a down shot on Leonardo DiCaprio. He's powerless. They're powerful. Same here. He's literally being descended on. He's literally being surrounded. He's being surrounded in the story, and he's being surrounded visually. It's a little dumb thing, but this kind of stuff really helps tell the story and make the audience feel the story point. They're not just reading it or understanding it like in that Gun Crazy movie. They're feeling it. That's a pick on this Gun Crazy movie. I don't know who directed it. I'm sure he's dead. Again, he's being surrounded. Same deal here. Boom, he's got a gun to his head. This person is so powerful. They're like so far above him. He is at the lowest point in the screen possible that he could possibly be. He's completely surrounded by the people trying to catch him. He falls to the ground even. And then you see a point of view shot. So the other thing that's important about this is we're seeing the camera is following, it's not following Tom Hanks, it's following Leonardo DiCaprio. And that's telling the audience, Leonardo DiCaprio, or Frank Abagnale Jr., is our main character. The camera follows the person who's important to the story. And in this story, it's about Leonardo DiCaprio. It's not about Tom Hanks. So we didn't follow Tom Hanks walking out. We followed Leonardo DiCaprio trying to walk out. Then we see, and to sort of prove that it's Leonardo DiCaprio's story, we see his point of view. We see his point of view of Tom Hanks. Again, Tom Hanks looks big and powerful on the screen. It's a big upshot. He's looking down on him. He looks like he's in charge, and Leonardo DiCaprio is lying on the ground like a dead person.
Okay, Carl. Let's go home.
And to even drive the point home further, the camera does this big pan up, and it's kind of a fancy move, but it's fancy for a point. It's fancy for a reason. It's fancy because we're trying to show just really drive home to the audience how powerless Leonardo DiCaprio is in this situation. This is the lowest he'll ever be in the movie. He's caught like a dead fish. And the camera keeps going up and up and up and up to show sort of like how effed he is.
And all those years.
And then we go to a new scene. This guy's powerful on the screen now because this person is now in charge. We're looking up at him, right?
We've only seen a handful of deserving gentlemen inducted as lifetime members.
And then the camera kind of pans down from him because he's not important. He's not who the scene's about. You know, the camera sort of like tends to follow the person who the story is the most interested in. And because we're only on that guy for a second and then we're already panning away from him, it's telling you this guy isn't the important person that the scene's about. It goes to
it's an honor
Leonardo DiCaprio,
that has seen 57
who the movie
names
is about.
Enshrined
But this particular scene is about Leonardo DiCaprio's dad, Christopher Walken.
Wall of Honor. And tonight, we make it.
And we're doing this kind of fancy move, but again, it's for a reason, because we're getting all this verbal buildup of who this character is and how great he is. And then the camera's like being really coy and building up drama about who this person could possibly be. So while this description is being done to him, we're slowly panning to this person.
So please stand.
And then we see around his head, and we go around his head, and we're really like drawing out the tension of who is it, who is it, who is it?
As I present my very good friend, the man who keeps our
see it's Christopher
sharp
Walken.
and our pins in
And it's like, obviously, this is the person who the speech is about. You don't have to say, I'm talking to you, Christopher Walken's character. We see who the person is.
William Abagnale.
Everybody stands up for him, showing that they honor him. They're surrounding him in praise. He visually, and this is important, this kind of stuff is important, he visually walks onto a podium which makes him higher than everyone else in the room. So he's important. He's more important than everyone else in the room. That might seem like a trivial detail, but you should think about that stuff when you're telling your story. Like, oh, if it's a story about a bully, maybe the bully is standing on the lunch table, you know, kicking salami sandwiches at the loser or whatever, you know. Salami sandwiches. The stories have to have a lot of salami sandwiches.
I stand.
And like this shot is just sort of like a wide shot to establish how big of a crowd is gathered together to honor Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken, again, is at the top of the screen. Everyone else is at the bottom. They're looking at him admiringly.
And here, humbled by the presence of Mayor Robert Wagner.
And none of these are an accident. You know? The people who pick these shots aren't doing them accidentally. They're doing them for a purpose.
Club president, Jack Barnes. Most of all, I'm honored to see my loving wife, Paula.
That shot was chosen because you want to see that Spielberg wants to show you the geographical location between his wife and Leonardo DiCaprio and him, because they're going to be cutting back to them all the time.
My son.
You see Leonardo DiCaprio looking up admiringly at his dad.
Sitting in the front row.
And then you see a point of view shot of Leonardo DiCaprio, again, because he's our main character and because the whole movie is about how much Leonardo DiCaprio respects his dad, we're seeing this from Leonardo DiCaprio's perspective. Okay, I can go on and on. Whatever. You get the point, right?
First mouse.
So, okay. And, you know, the rest of the shot is basically a shot of, sort of point of view shot of Leonardo DiCaprio seeing his dad, and you keep cutting back to Leonardo DiCaprio because that's really important too. It's not enough that you see their perspective. You have to see the emotion that this is eliciting on their face. So it's like every time that his dad's talking, you cut to Leonardo DiCaprio, he's beaming because he loves his dad so much because that's the point of the scene. Okay, moving on. All right. Let's get this out of here. Okay. I just want to talk very quickly about this. This is one of the things that they talked about in sort of the Pixar internship is shot economy. And for this, I'll show you something a little bit more fun than sort of these movie clips. I'm going to show you the pitch. And again, don't share this with anyone, whatever. But it's not the actual movie. This is a pitch that I did to sort of get the movie greenlit. We'll sort of talk about this tomorrow, or I mean next week's lesson, because this is one of the things I put together that got the movie made. But the interesting thing about this is I didn't have any storyboard artists on the crew, and I knew this girl Dana Terrace, who's this really brilliant storyboard artist. She's making the Owl House right now on Disney Channel. She's so good and she's so smart and she's such a great board artist. Like I saw her when I was on Gravity Falls. I saw how much she was killing it on it. And when I had to have somebody board she wasn't working at the time. She was like in France or something. And I like sent her this harried email and I'm like, Dana, can you board this crazy, these 2 pages of dialogue for this big pitch I have? And can you do it by the end of the week? And because I had limited time, I was like, let's try to keep it to as few shots as possible because we don't have a ton of time. And because we didn't have a ton of time, it was actually smart. We were forced to work smarter. So we used less shots and it actually made the short better. Okay, so I'll just pitch this a little bit. And this is wild. This is how the movie started. It didn't end up this way. There's some really intense parts of it and you'll see. So, all right. So dad's driving. Woman looks back. Hon, gotta get this. So I can read. Hon, I think you might have missed that exit. No, I think we're good. This way is totally fine. Dad, we totally should have taken that exit. Trust me, I've got things completely under control. Well, love, I don't know if you do because we're being chased by an army of robots. Whoopsie doodle, there goes another one. Mom, are we gonna die? Of course not, hon. Just watch your movie, have fun. And he's like, F is for fantastic, fantastic things to see. A is for amazing, amazing for you and me. And then it says death to humans. He's like, and he turns the volume up. And then Linda's like, hon, I really think you should let someone else drive. He's like, it's fine. Look, when I was in the Navy, there was a saying, a ship needs one captain or it goes down. Weren't you just a cook in the Navy? The point remains. Rick Mitchell, I swear that you see die humans, robots come out, death to humans. Oh, for the love of Pete, throws a grenade at him. I think you're just being a real pill right now, buddy. You always try to control everything. I'm with Mom. You don't even let anyone change the music. If I'm going to die, I don't want to do it to Do the Conga by Gloria Estefan. Some people like this song. She's a very talented young woman. Honk, honk. She's a very talented young woman. What do you think, Mr. President? The President of the United States, who at the time was Obama, was in the backseat. Dogs chewing on his tie. I think the most prudent course of action would be to let someone else drive. Like maybe, I don't know, the leader of the free world. See, the President of the United States agrees with me. Well, don't forget, we bailed you out of Washington, bucko. There's a lot of disrespect in this car. I'd also like to point out that your son is drinking all the juice boxes. I only drank the blue ones. You knew blue was my favorite. And she sees an exit. There's the exit, honey. And then they turn around, I mean, so anyway, it keeps going. I'm not going to do the whole thing because, I don't know, it feels dicey even showing you guys this. But but I just want to show, we did it in as few shots as possible. We fit all of this exposition into one big, long shot. And then it extends out to a second shot. But this is still kind of the same shot, We tried to do as much as we could, instead of cutting to the Aaron in the backseat, we just panned to him So again, we're just trying to limit our pencil mileage, but in doing so, I think we also made the short better and more compelling, and it got the whole movie made. You know, he's watching these little goofballs. It's like Death to Humans. And again, we're using basically the same shot here that we were using before with Linda when she's looking out the window. So it's like, again, like there's this long dialogue scene, but we're trying to keep it all in like 1 or 2 shots. You know, this could happen in like 10 shots, but instead it's just 1 shot, Linda talking, robots come, she throws a grenade, it explodes, it keeps going, you know. You know, here's the shot, and then there's a reverse shot of the president's backyard, you know, and then all this action sort of takes place in the front. So all I'm just saying is that like sometimes the more you can show, the more you can reuse shots, it's great for so many reasons. One, reusing shots is great. I'll tell you. Why is it good? One, it keeps the audience grounded and clear in geography. I think in those boards, I think Dana did a really great job of making sure that you knew where every character was at every point in the story. Cutting too much without reason is disorienting. If you don't have a reason to cut, don't cut. Not having a bunch of shots robs new shots of their impact. Like sometimes when you had that shot of like the crazy, you know, alien spaceship shooting, you know, that was more impactful because we didn't have a bunch of crazy cuts before. It was just 1 long shot of the family talking, and then you do 1 big shot to have the impact of everything. Also, it makes it harder on yourself to do a bunch of new shots for no reasons. This is like something that like a lot of first-time board artists, when they just get their first job, they want to impress people, and they're like, I'm gonna do so many shots, it's gonna blow your mind. But oftentimes less is more, because it makes it harder on yourself because you've got to do a bunch of new angles for no reason. It makes it harder on other departments because they're like, what? Why is this so many shots? And then the layout department's got to cut down the amount of shots, and it costs extra money. Every shot setup costs money. Anyway, so it's like you want to use long shots for. So it's like take any excuse you can to cut less. It's more engrossing for an audience because it makes it feel like things are in real time. And it also is like better for everyone in the department, because that's the great thing about animation. You could have a shot be like 90 minutes if you want, because you don't have to worry about actors hitting their marks and saying all the lines right. You know, they will say the lines right because they're animated characters. They're puppets created in a computer. And I'll just show you a very quick shot from Magnolia. And it's just like, it's an unsexy long shot, because because not all long shots are like meant to be like, whoa, look, it's a crazy action scene, like you know, like Children of Men, and there's blood on the lens and all that stuff. You could also use long shots to make a more engaging scenes, like this shot from Magnolia. This is all just 1 long scene. And I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I'm just show you enough. And because it's unbroken, it makes it feel like you're more in the room with them. And it also sort of does these slow moves. So instead of like cutting from place to place, you're all doing it in 1 move, and you're getting to where you need to be. So anyway, let's just watch. This is a sort of dying man and his caretaker. That's all you need.
Hey, come here. Come here. Bill, I'm gonna try talk, and I'm trying to say something. Okay. Do you know Lily? Phil, do you know her?
No.
Lily?
No, I don't.
Lily's his ex-wife.
Oh, she's my love, my life, love of it. Yeah. In school, 12 years old in school in 6th grade, I saw her. Yeah, I didn't go to that school, but we met. My friend knew her. I said, what's that girl? How's that Lily? She's bad. She sleeps with guys. He said this, but then sometimes, and I went to another school, you see. But then...
so then you basically, you know, you're watching this whole scene.
When high school at an end...
you're watching this whole scene and you're in this over the shoulder shot of Philip Seymour Hoffman, but you got there through one long take and you're really watching this old guy and you're sort of engaged in his story and you don't even notice that there was a camera move happening at the same time. It felt really natural. So it's like basically wherever you can, use less shots. If you can do something in one shot, do it. If you can do something in 2 shots instead of 3 or 4 or 5, do it. It's a good challenge to yourself, and I won't make you guys do this, but at the Pixar Story internship, one of the first things we had to do was do 30 boards, but only use 5 shots. And it was a really good exercise. You guys can sort of add that to your list of things to do if you want to just get a random exercise, because it forces you to sort of think about shot economy, and it forces you to realize how few shots you often need to tell the story effectively. And it's like, I don't think you should hold off on shots if it's ruining the story, but if you can, it's better to have less shots because it's clearer and it's sort of, and it makes whatever your shot is more impactful. Anyway, moving on. Okay. Another thing, this is another thing I learned in the Pixar Story internship that I think really stuck with me. It didn't stick with me enough to use it enough in our movie. Like I still look at our movie and I'm like, we don't have enough wide shots. But keep it wide. Keep it wider than you think you have to. Because if you look at most scenes for most movies, they're wider than you think they are. And as storyboard artists, it becomes really easy shorthand to draw everyone really close because it's really easy. Because you're like, oh, it's just head and shoulders, and I'm done with this panel. I get to move on to the next one. And that's good to a point, but it's like when you're in reality, you're normally not that close to people. You're normally like at this level far away from people. So one, it makes things feel more real because you're seeing life the way you normally see life, which is just that people are generally a little further away. Even if you're sitting close and talking to somebody, they're not like right there on you. And then the other thing is it gives you a better sense of space and place. And also another thing about backgrounds, I was actually just talking to a student about this. You can very quickly, I'm going to try to see if this is going to work. Let's see if I can do this. Like you can very quickly imply space, with like not that many lines. You're like, oh, this is a bus kind of roughly. And this is a bus and this is a background. And there's some high rises in the background. It's something I always noticed in my storyboard artists who worked on the movie, or our team, I guess, my storyboard artists, that's lame. But the storyboard artists that worked on the movie, they would get across a background. They're like, okay, wheels on a bus. Like you can get across a background pretty quickly, and then you're like, and then you just do the like storyboard, perspective lines. And then all of a sudden you're done with the background. It's like, it doesn't take that many lines and they could be kind of scratchy. So as long as that first shot is, you can tell what everything is, the rest of your boards can be so scratchy. And as long as you know where the location is, you can be really scratchy with the backgrounds. Anyway, people generally see the world a bit wider. It gives you a better sense of place and space, and it's more rare in animation because it's harder. So ask yourself, and then here's actually, I'll talk about that later. Ask yourself, what am I building to? Oh, no, this is good now. Because it's like with these decisions too, it's always important to ask yourself what you're building to. Like, for example, if you're building to this big romantic moment or something where 2 characters kiss, if that's the end of your short, these characters, they've been in love with each other forever, and it's like, will they, won't they thing, and at the end they kiss, and that's so triumphant, and that's the end of your movie. So if that was what you were doing for your movie, you'd want to have your characters far apart in the beginning. Like keep one character on this side of the screen, keep the other character way far away. And as they're getting more intimate and as they're falling in love or whatever the scene is, or admitting their love to each other, they can get closer and closer and closer and closer to each other and closer to the camera. Like you always want to ask yourself, what am I building to? So if you're building to these characters coming together, do it visually, show them really far apart at first, and then have them get closer together as a thing. Or if you're building to a fight, you could sort of like stage the characters really oppositionally to each other. Maybe they start as friends and they're hanging out like this, but by the end they're facing each other and they're enemies, Okay, and then like a little word about contrast is that like contrast, like I talked about with Raging Bull, contrast is visible in all of these situations. Like when you're like if you're if you're sort of like in that Raging Bull example, it's like, okay, we're gonna have this big crazy action scene. Let's have a really slow paced, deliberate scene ahead of it, so it makes the action more exciting, right? Or how could you use contrast to make this moment more interesting? Like, you could cut from this really sort of tender, close scene of a mother reading to her son, and she's looking down on him beautifully, and then boom, you cut to bam, the middle of war, horses getting shot and people fighting each other and guys stabbing each other in the chest, and then it's like, boom, Napoleon. This is kind of a stupid TV way to open it or whatever, but you know, that's a valid way to do it. You know, you can go from something really small and sort of tender and sweet to something really intense, because I think that's what's interesting about that opening for Napoleon, because you're opening on him as a baby and him being like small and not powerful. And then all of a sudden you cut to him as a general leading an army, people dying left and right. Like, that contrast would really wake people up in the audience, be like, whoa, what am I watching? I'm going to ignore this. One thing I'll just say is, like, find ways to, in your boards, like, create spontaneity. Like, if you're filming something in live action, sometimes somebody will just like pick up a pen and start looking at it. Like, we'll talk about this next. Never mind. Forget it. Okay, part 9. I don't know if you're paying attention. I don't know what number we're actually on, but I just sort of started naming them, numbering them in a weird way at some point. But this is question and answer storytelling. This is like one of my biggest takeaways from that internship I did at Pixar. And like one of the, I remember telling people this, I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm receiving the animation quickening over here. This is incredible. Quickening is from Highlander, but I'm gaining power, you know? Because this blew young Michael Rianda's mind. This is me. Anyway, this shit blew my mind. So I'm gonna show you a couple openings to a couple things. And in that, I'm going to sort of show you what question and answer storytelling is. Okay, Breaking Bad. Where's Breaking Bad? Okay. So the reason I'm showing this, and also just I was checking the chat out or whatever. It's like 9:19 right now. We'll probably be ending up at around 9:30 or 9:45, somewhere around there. I was like Gundy's. Sorry. I'm trying to come on. Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of this little. Why isn't it moving? Shit. Can't get this effing rewind. Oh Jesus. Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. So the reason I'm showing this is everything about this is question and answer storytelling, because like, look, it's starting out and it's using contrast here. We'll just walk through it a little bit. It's using contrast because it's real slow at first. It's like slow Arizona or New Mexico wilderness. Everything's cool, everything's chill. You're really building like kind of like a little, like, you know, why does he go inside? Okay, he's got this camera. What did he need the camera for? He's sort of giving a final farewell to his wife and his kids. He said, everything I did for you. What did he do? What's going on? He's grabbing a gun. He's gonna point it at the cops. What the fuck is going on? All these things are like asking you, like, you're like, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? I remember seeing this. I was like, what? The dad for Malcolm in the Middle is the murderer. What the fuck is happening? You know. And then it slows down and it's this really intense scene. He's crying. It's like, why is he crying? What's going on? What's so intense? And then it goes to this like very quotidian, boring, banal breakfast of this old guy. And it could have opened this way. It could have opened with like an alarm, like 5 a.m. Hits the alarm. Oh, I'm a sad middle-aged guy. And if that was the beginning of the show, I wouldn't probably have kept watching it. But I was like, who's this guy? What the fuck's going on? And then you learn he's a science teacher. It's like, how'd the science teacher end up with a gun in his underpants? What the fuck is going on? And you have to watch the end because you're so compelled. It's asking all these really compelling questions. And you're like, I gotta know. And it's one of the things, and we sort of like, one of the things we did when we were watching Gravity Falls is we were watching we loved shows like Twin Peaks and we loved shows like Breaking Bad. And we were, and in the beginning, the opening episode, one of the things that excited me about wanting to join Gravity Falls is Alex talking about, like, we want to do continuity with this show. We want to have real mysteries because the show's about mysteries. Let's have some real mysteries. And we got super excited about it. And then we're like, we did the pilot and the pilot was feeling lacking. And Alex is like, dude, you know what this needs? We just need to ask a big, interesting question at the end. So he tosses in this bit, and where, you know, Grunkle Stan goes downstairs and then he opens up this vending machine and he goes down, and it was like, and it fucking worked, because like all the kids were like, whoa, this is like a funny sitcom, and then there's a crazy mystery at the end. What's going on? What's down there? What's in a vending machine? Is it a secret? It's a secret from the kids? What the hell's going on? And all of a sudden it super powered the next episode, and people wanted to know what was going to happen next. And then we fooled them by our next episode having nothing to do with continuity. Yes. But it was a really effective question, and we had thought through, at least, or Alex had thought through, at least to the end of the story of the twins, brothers, and stuff like that. He thought through to the end of it, so we kind of had some sort of a clue as to what was going to happen when we went down there. But asking that question at the end of that episode ignited the whole series, I feel like, just like the questions at the beginning of this show ignited this series. Why is this guy trying to, what's going on? Anyway, okay. Audiences want this. They don't want to know the whole story right away. They secretly want to work for it. It makes them feel like they're part of the story, not just a passive viewer. This is the thing I keep talking about in terms of making the audience an active participant. Because if they're asking questions, they're leaning in and they want to know the answers and they want to know what's happening next. It's human nature. This is a weird example, but like, people still talk about the Kennedy assassination because they don't know who the killer was. They're still speculating to this day. I heard people are reading books and like, oh, who was it? Versus if you look at, we know who shot James Garfield. We know who shot Lincoln. No one cares because you know the answer, but people are still fascinated by the Kennedy assassination because they don't have the answer. People naturally, if they get asked a potent question, they want the answer. And it's the same reason people like Tetris. These are your questions here. And then when, because like in Breaking Bad, these are all the questions that build up. It's like, why is this guy naked? Why is he in a Winnebago? Why is he, what's that stuff? Why are his pants flying in the air? All these are the questions. And then by the time you get to the end of the episode, you're like, whoa, he's a high school guy. He's a high school science teacher making meth. Then you get the answer and it's like intensely satisfying. You're like, oh, that was great. And then it starts all over again. You sort of string together these questions and answers. It's not the only way to tell a story, but it's a really compelling way to tell stories. You can chain these together. Like, for example, like that scene we watched in WALL-E, you start off and you're like, what happened? Why is the earth screwed up? And then you learn, okay, humans polluted the earth. Who's this little guy? Oh, he's a trash robot. Why is he watching Hello Dolly? He's lonely and he wants love. What's happening? Is there an earthquake? No, a ship comes with a lady robot. Question: Will the lonely robots dream come true with the lady robot? You'll have to watch the rest to find out. And as a viewer, personally, I was like, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? Because it's sort of not giving you, it's not solar babiesing you. No offense to solar babies. It's not telling you everything in the beginning. It's making you work for it. Because you're working for it, you're having a good time. You're having fun. You're watching a movie. Great stories often ask super compelling questions. But just the questions aren't enough. Lost. But that was a serious problem. I loved Lost and I was so invested in it. And sometimes when the answers weren't as satisfying as the questions, you would get mad as an audience. So we watched Breaking Bad. But like, for example, also the beginning of The Thing is one of the all-time best examples of this. Watch the beginning of The Thing. It's so good. It's so good. It starts with Norwegian people chasing a dog and it only gets better. And the great thing about The Thing is it has compelling answers to its weird questions. It's like, why are these Norwegians chasing a dog? And the answer is so satisfying and so crazy. Same thing, again, another quick story about Gravity Falls is like, so we had this mystery in the end of the first show of what's going to be underneath the shack. We knew at the end of the first season, because we asked this big question at the beginning, we're going to have to come up with a satisfying answer. And our answer at the time, if you've seen the show, was like, he's got the third book. And then we showed it to some of our board artists, this Matt Brawley, who is making Amphibia now. And he's like, Who cares? I figured he probably had the book. And we're like, what? Huh? Like, this was our big thing, you know? And so we had this like emergency Saturday meeting, and we sat down with Rob Ranzetti and me and Alex and Tim McKeown, one of the writers, and we all got together in a room. We're like, what would be satisfying to find in that room? And we started brainstorming stuff, and we worked backwards from where we knew the story was headed. And it would be like, well, if there was a crazy portal to other worlds, that'd be pretty cool, you know? And it was nice because we had some place to go with that story. It was like, it was a new we were asking a big new question at the end of our season, but it was also a satisfying answer to our first big question. So it enabled us to string together those questions and answers throughout the story. Anyway, it's very exciting. It goes even deeper. You can use it at any point to create interesting shots. I'll just show you a very quick one. I'll try to kind of wrap it up pretty soon because I don't want to go too late. I know it's late for a lot of you guys. Where is it? Here we go. No Country for Old Men. So it's like you can do this in the micro with shots as well, and it's so compelling. It's such an interesting way to have a shot. It's like sometimes, you know, and sometimes the instinct in storyboarding is like, okay, start on location. All right, here's an isometric Sims-like shot of a building. Okay, now here's the character. You know, but you could start scenes however. So like for example, in No Country for Old Men, a scene opens. This is a totally new location. And it opens from a character's point of view. We don't know who that character is, but it makes you curious. You're like, who's this guy? Who's hunting these antelope? What's going on? And then you reveal that it's Josh Brolin. This is a guy we haven't seen before. And we're like, okay, what's this guy? He's obviously a hunter. So you're catching up. The author is ahead of you, and they're like, come on this journey with me. And you're like following the breadcrumbs. You're like, okay, I'm trying to keep up. Okay, Josh Brolin, he's a hunter. Okay, I'm getting it. Versus like, sometimes when you're watching a movie, you're like, I get it. They're gonna fall in love at the end. I don't need to watch this. And another cool thing about No Country for Old Men or whatever, it's like it saves the wide shot for way later, so you do get a sense of the location, but it's after you've seen all these compelling close-up shots. Anyway, whoa, drawn on the screen. Okay, but it goes even deeper. You can even do this. You can give someone the Tetris block that they need to do, but you can make them move it aside, and you could just drop it in the middle. You don't even drop it where it's supposed to be. You just give them the Tetris block, and then they figure it out. This gives the audience all the information they need, but you're not just handing it to them. It's up to them to move it into the block, and then it's like super intense satisfaction. They feel like geniuses. I'll show you one quick example of that, which is a movie called The Apartment. The Apartment is about a sort of advertising. It was sort of very influential to Mad Men. It's about an advertising agency where this guy Jack Lemmon, this character, is sort of renting out his room to businessmen that are sort of sleeping with their secretaries and cheating on their wives. And he finds this sort of like cracked mirror in his room, so he knows that what he thinks is a floozy, like, sort of like who was sleeping with the boss left it behind. So anyway, this is the scene.
Mr. Dublick, I would like your honest...
And he's in love with this character.
I've had this under my desk for a week. It cost me $15. I've been able to get up enough nerve to wear it. It's what they call the junior executive model. What do you think? I guess I made a boo-boo, huh? Really? You wouldn't be ashamed to be seen with somebody in a hat like this?
Of course not.
Maybe if I wore it a little more to one side. How's that? Is that better?
Much better.
Well, since you wouldn't be ashamed to be seen with me, how about the three of us going out tonight? You, me, and the bowler. We'll stroll down Fifth Avenue, sort of break it in.
This is a bad day for me.
Oh, I understand. Christmas family and all that.
I better get back to my elevator. I don't want to be fired.
You don't have to worry about that. I got quite a bit of influence and personality. You know Mr. Sheldrake?
Why?
Well, he and I are like that. He sent me a Christmas card. See?
Makes a cute picture.
Maybe I put in a word for you. With Mr. Sheldrake, get you a little promotion. How would you like to be an elevator starter?
I'm afraid there are too many girls around here with seniority over me.
No problem. Why don't we discuss it sometime over the holidays? I can call you, pick you up, we have a big unveiling. Are you sure this is the right way to wear this?
I think so. Here.
You don't think it's tilted a little too much? I mean, after all, this is a conservative firm. I don't want people to think I'm an entertainer.
What's the matter?
The mirror, it's broken.
Yes, I know. I like it that way. Makes me look the way I feel. Your phone.
Okay, I hope it probably doesn't have the same impact that you would have when you watch the movie on its own. But when you're watching the movie, you know, you've learned like 20 minutes ago that the boss was taking some girl to Jack Lemmon's apartment, and he had that broken mirror, and he was like, oh yeah, this broken mirror. And then the guy is geniusly, not without saying anything, without saying I'm sleeping with the boss, she shows her this broken mirror, and Jack Lemmon like knows, like, oh my God, this was the girl in my apartment that was sleeping with the boss. And as the audience, you're like, and it feels even more impactful because you're like, I put it together. I'm a genius. Because that's a thing that the guy who made it, Ernest Lubitsch, Ernest Lubitsch, I think is his name. Lubitsch. Anyway, Lubitsch is his last name. He's a great director. He made Ninotchka. He made a bunch of great movies. And he would always say, like, if you give an audience 2 + 2 and you let them figure out 4, they'll love you forever. So it's like if you give audience these little breadcrumbs and you let them put them together, they feel great. Anyway, that's kind of like advanced stuff. I mean, I think that the main stuff is just sort of like subjective storytelling and sort of knowing the point of the scene and all that, and trying to the house disappeared. So anyway, there's not really as much left as it. And the final thing, there's a bunch left over, but there's like a whole separate class on acting that I was like, maybe I could fit it all in one class, but I don't think I can. So there's a sort of like a Brad Bird quote. He's sort of like, he gave this talk at CalArts once, and he's like, you know, these movies. That's a terrible Brad Bird impression. I love Brad Bird. I don't want to make it seem like I'm doing a bad impression of him, but he's like, they have these movies, man, and it's just like a striptease where the stripper shows you everything right at the beginning. You gotta work your way into it. You gotta really do it. You know, it's like he's basically just saying like action movies and stuff. They'll just cut to the end of the movie and show you the most exciting part at minute 1. Whereas like a more sort of like skillful movie, like even in Iron Giant or something, or in, you know, like in Iron Giant, they hold off on the giant for a really long time. Just like in E.T., they hold off on E.T. for a long time, or in Jaws, they hold off on showing Jaws for a long time, or the Avengers, they hold off on Hulk freaking out for a long time. So when it happens, it's really impactful. So if you do it, if you use it too early, it's not just a way to make interesting openings. It makes the audience more engaged. So like, for an example, in WALL-E, the whole world is like orange and warm, gross, brown, shitty colors. And then all of a sudden, when you see, they don't use green for the entire beginning of the movie. They only use green like 8 minutes in. And when you see it, it's like really impactful, because it's like, that's a big story point. They wanted to make the natural world feel really stand out from this bleak, dark brown world. So when you see the green plant, it really feels like a relief almost. And it's really impactful. Same deal with this is another example that Pixar guys use a lot. It's City Lights, where it's a great Charlie Chaplin movie and it's a love story, and almost the entire movie is done in these wide shots, and it's like all wide. It's very objective, as I would say, and you know, whatever. But it's really effective. It's really funny, and it's really like moving, and you're really invested in the story between Charlie Chaplin and this blind girl. And they hold off on the close-ups for the very end. And when you see the close-up, when you see Charlie Chaplin smile, and when you see the girl say she's in love with him, it feels so great because you've been holding off on these close-ups. And when you see it, it really is impactful. And you're like, oh my God. And it really feels like something. So it's like, it's often good to sort of not give the audience all the cookies at once in the beginning. You could sort of hold off on those, hold off on some of the cooler stuff to build to somewhere. You want to be able to have someplace to build to. Another example is Jaws. Jaws is like one of the most, suspenseful movies of all time. And it was kind of this accident that they didn't have the shark for the whole movie, but it became this really huge benefit because it just implying all this danger with just this pure, just a dumb shark fin in the air. But he's doing all this with filmmaking. And by the time you finally get to the shark showing up, it's like, like the audience was screaming because you built so much tension. The whole movie was just this, just a bunch of implied violence, Sort of skip past this part. I have a whole part about acting. Don't have enough time. That would take another like 2.5 hours. So, okay. So there's a couple more things I'll talk about. Wrap up. This is a quick thing. It's just like so this is like whatever your story is. It's really important to sell it. Which it just means like again, when I was at sort of like these are like a lot of the lessons that I learned when I was at the Pixar internship. But Pete Sohn, who is a great animator and a great storyboard artist, and he's the voice of a bunch of characters. He's the voice of like the brother in Ratatouille, and he's the voice of the little kid, and he's some voice in Up. I don't remember. Anyway, doesn't matter. He made Partly Cloudy, whatever. He would always ask like, what's the real detail? And he was like, I remember one time one of his sort of like apprentices was like boarding somebody standing on a table, and he kept standing on the table because he wanted to feel like, he's like, all right, if you stand on the table, oh shit. Oh no. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Sorry, my thing went out. Anyway, I won't do that again. But it's like if you stand on a table, like for example, that would be a great example if somebody tried to stand on their chair and he knocked and he knocked a plug out and the printer turned back on again. It would like that would be real because when you stand, because sometimes somebody would board somebody jumping on the table and they just jump on it and then perfectly stand there. But in real life, that doesn't really happen. And it basically boils down to this. If you create a believable world, your story will become more powerful, even though it's hard to spot and define. Even if the world is only believable in its own terms, like Alien. And I tell this one quick story, which is like, when I was storyboarding, at first, I did a sort of like a scene that was like a car chase. And then one of my friends was looking at it and it's like, well, and it was really clean. Like all these cars were like just cleanly going around turns and it was kind of boring. And he's like, my friend was like, well, when you watch a car chase in a movie, they're always like bashing through garbage cans and garbage is flying and they're almost hitting pedestrians because that makes it feel more real. Because if you were really in a car chase on real streets, there would be all these real obstacles that you couldn't imagine if you were just trying to guess it in your head. So you had to try to like think one step further and be like, okay, if this is a real car chase, what real obstacles would get in the way of these characters? Anyway, the same applies to design. So like this design in iRobot, it's like, whatever. Doesn't quite feel real. It feels like there's, even though this is a good enough movie in a lot of ways, it just feels like clean and sterile and like not like the real world. Versus Star Wars, it has futuristic stuff, but it's all dusty and dingy and kind of reminds us of the real, or like Blade Runner, kind of reminds us of the real world because like we have futuristic stuff today, like we have cell phones and all this stuff, but we don't. It's like, it's not like everything in the world is clean and I'm not wearing a silver jumpsuit or anything. Okay, don't have enough time to talk about acting. It's getting late, so we'll just jump to the assignment because you got plenty of information here to go off of. Oh, and the final thing is sort of, you can do this before you go to sleep tonight. You can do this at the end if you're still jacked up. Great. You can do it tomorrow if you want to. But now that you know all the stuff you know, try to do another storyboard of a mother reading to a baby. So you'll take the one you did at the beginning, and then you'll take the one you do now and put them next to each other. And I bet the one you'll do now is better because you've learned so much over the past 3 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes. And also post them on Twitter. I'll retweet them. I'll do a good job and I'll give you a shout out. Okay, so your homework this week, it's very exciting. here's what I want you to do. If you started doing a story for your like character arc thing, I would say put that on the back burner for now, because I think it's easiest and best to learn how to do this assignment working from somebody else's words and somebody else's story, because then you don't have to like get bogged down and like, is this story right? Is the writing right? Is the arc right? Are the characters right? And you're just focused on how to best tell the story visually. So what I would say is there's a website called Internet Script Database, something like that, Internet Script Database. You could just look up, and what I would recommend is find a script from a director that you love that you've never seen before. It's really important that you've never seen the movie before. And board like the first page or two, page and a half, whatever it is. And then you're gonna board out that first opening, and then you're gonna you'll finish it in a week. And then the cool thing is then you get to watch the real opening that the real director did, and then you get to compare your boards to their boards. And sometimes you do things better than fancy directors, and sometimes you don't do things as good as fancy directors often, because you guys are students and you're learning, and that's right. And then you can sort of like take a look at those boards and learn what the author was doing that you didn't. And then you can sort of like compare and contrast those. Then you'll level up, you'll become a visual dynamics velociraptor. And then you can go back and board your character arc thing, and you'll be such a great board artist. You'll have lasers coming out of your eyes. You'll destroy it, and you'll do the best boards ever, and you'll get hired. It'll be fun. So thank you for listening. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. Sorry it went so long. All right.
Awesome. Thank you,
Cool.
Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was amazing. There are a few people who were asking about like if you were going to cover the acting bit maybe next week or at some point, or
yeah, I'll sort of maybe, yeah, I think I could probably do it as part of next week.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries at all. But yeah, that's awesome. All right,
Cool.
Thanks so much, Mike, man. Hey, listen, have a good night, everyone. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Cool.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.